Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman.
Good morning, members. Unfortunately, our regular minister is off sick today. He's poorly with a cough and a cold. Our good friend Mike has agreed to stand in. Mike is a lay preacher. Mike Wilcox is a lay preacher, and he's agreed to stand in to lead us in prayers this morning. Mike Wilcox.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, all. Let us pray. You have called us, O God, to be your people. You have loved us and chosen us for your own. Clothe us with your compassion, your kindness, your humility, your gentleness and patience. Help us forgive one another as you have forgiven us, and bind us together in the perfect unity of your love, through Jesus Christ the Lord, who is alive and reigns with the Holy Spirit, one God, to the end of the ages. Amen. Amen. O God, the Creator and ruler of all, we ask your blessing on the members of this County Council who have been called to show care and responsibility in the community. We pray that they may have wisdom, patience and the ability to listen to each other and to the needs and desires of those they represent. That through their dedication and hard work, the county may duly prosper and the life of all its people enhanced. We make our prayers in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Lord God, we hold before you those who are in need of any kind, and especially those who suffer. We pray especially for His Majesty the King, the Princess of Wales, praying that your healing spirit will support, strengthen and sustain them, that they may be strong in faith, hope and love, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. We bring all these prayers together with the words that Jesus Christ himself taught us as we say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Please be seated. Item one on today's agenda is the election of the chairman of the County Council. May I have members' nominations for the election of the chairman of the County Council? Councillor Jeremy Pert.
Good morning. It gives me great pleasure to nominate the councillor for Hednesford and Rawnsley, Councillor Phil Hewitt, who has been an excellent, hard-working and effective councillor and chair as the chair for the ensuing municipal year.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Philippa Hayden.
Thank you, Chair. My pleasure to second you for this position. I think from the last 12 months we can all see how fantastic you've been. Very gracious and all kept us in account. Thank you.
Other nominations? Thank you. It has been proposed and seconded that Councillor Phil Hewitt be appointed as Chairman of the County Council for the ensuing year. Is that agreed? Thank you. I've got to sign first. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Item 2 on today's agenda, apologies. Oh, sorry, before I start, my apologies. Can I just say thank you for the trust that members have placed in me. Thank you for Jeremy for nominating me and for Philippa particularly for seconding me. It's been a real and genuine privilege to be chairman over the last 12 months. and I feel it's just as much a privilege to be chairman over the forthcoming months representing this council and Staffordshire as a whole. So thank you so much for your trust in me. I'm truly humbled. Item 2, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Council. Yes, we have 3 notified councillors: Farrell, Councillor Jessel and Councillor Wowman.
Are there any further apologies? Moving on to item 3. The interest. Thank you. Moving quickly on to item 4, confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 14th of March 2024. I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 14th of March 2024 be signed as a true record. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Please. Thank you, Mike. Item 5 on today's agenda, election of the Vice Chairman of the County Council. We now move to nominations for the appointment of the Vice Chairman of the County Council. May I have members' nominations, please? Councillor Peters.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman, on your appointment.
Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Gretrix. He is an experienced councillor with many years of experience and service. He is reliable, he listens, and he communicates. It gives me great pleasure to propose Colin Gretrix as Vice Chairman. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members, and congratulations on your second term.
Thank you.
I'm delighted to second Colin Gretrix for the forthcoming year as Vice Chair for Staffordshire County Council. I've known Colin now for 7 years and, ironically, served on committees for the full 7 years. So I've got to know Colin. He can be what I would call quite upfront with you. But when you get to know him, he's got one hell of a sense of humour. So I think, and I'm sure he does, bring that to this role. But all I would say is that I think that Colin will serve and represent Staffordshire County Council and support you as chairman, as his vice, for the forthcoming year in a great way. So I'm very happy to second Colin.
It has been proposed and seconded that Councillor Gretrix be appointed as Vice Chairman of the County Council for the ensuing year. Is that agreed? I'll give Councillor Gretrix the opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the proposer and seconder, Councillor Bernard Peters and Councillor Mike Sutherland, for their kind words. I'd have to say that for the last year, the Chairman has been somewhat prolific in his ability to attend, so there hasn't been a great deal of opportunity, but there were 2 holidays that the Chairman managed to sneak in. And those of you that have been involved with civic matters will know about the citizenships which we've shared. So I've been to quite a few of those, and I've enjoyed those, and I've enjoyed serving, and I will continue to do so.
The warmest congratulations. Item 6, which is the Chairman's correspondence. I have 2 pieces of correspondence which I'll take separately. Firstly, some sad news for former councillor Nicholas Beach. It is my sad duty to inform members of the recent death of former County Councillor Nicholas Beach. Mr. Beach represented the Needwood Forest electoral division on the County Council between 1989 and 2001. He served on a number of the Council's committees, including the Highways Committee, Arts and Archives Committee, Social Services Committee, and the Policy and Resources Committee. I'll give members the opportunity to speak about Mr. Nicholas Beach. Councillor Philip Atkins.
Oh, there's not many who'll remember Nick, looking around the chamber. He got elected as you said, Chairman, in 1989 to represent Needwood Division in East Staffordshire, and is one of those characters that we have on the County Council from time to time. He was 95, I think, when he passed away. And you sort of think back to, well, blimey, you know, he was born in the 1920s, and he served in Korea, a war that's been forgotten by many. And Major Nick Beach came back from there and serving in the army, and he ended up at Burton in the breweries and working mainly in the distribution and haulage. So it's quite... I went through Burton last night and I wondered what Nick would think of all the distribution centres and the lorries that are going up and down Centrum Park, which wasn't there when he started work. He lived at Tatenhill. He was an absolute straight-as-a-die man, as you would imagine, from a major in the army. And he took a keen interest in social care, and he was the Conservative social care spokesman through the 90s and into when he stood down in 2001, and had some quite firm views about how we should be going forward. Heart of gold, absolutely straight, somebody that you could really rely on, and his daughter ended up in Florida, so he used to spend a bit of time going out there and spending time with the family out in Florida, and what they did out there, and he really did live life to the full. It's a shame Julia Jessel's not here today, because she would understand more than anybody the intricacies of Tatenhill village politics and Needwood, but Nick was somebody who could operate at a national level, but right down to an individual level, which is something that's quite rare in people. And hopefully, looking around the room, there's quite a few of people like that in this chamber today. But I think the thing is that it's that time span that struck me when I knew Nick, that very, very seldom do you get to sit with somebody who served in a war that everybody's forgotten about. When jet fighters were first there were swarms of Chinese coming over in Korea, down to the sea, Incheon, all of that. Fascinating guy to talk to. And let's hope that these things aren't forgotten. But I shan't forget Nick anyway, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins, for those incredibly kind words. Councillor Ian Parry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to rise briefly to also offer my tribute to Major Beach. I met Major Beach, Nick Beach, one of the people, I guess, in the chamber, Philip, that do remember him. It was May 1997, not our finest hour, as you probably recall. And we had our group meeting, and after our group meeting in those days, there was a bit of a ham tea going on in the Oak Room. And as a new person surrounded by these people I'd heard of, never met before, but they were big names to me, you know, Rex Roberts and Nick Beach and Arnold Ward, Philip Atkins, and these other people who I had met. And I was kind of slightly overawed by the whole experience. And I have to say, a bit shy, but Nick Beach was the one person that came up to me and said, hello, hello, new boy, kind of thing. And we had a conversation. Lovely, lovely man, wise, kind, knowledgeable, experienced, and very engaging. And I always remember that, and always grateful to Nick in terms of not making me feel a complete outsider on my first day at school. So yes, thank you, Nick Beach. May you rest in peace.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Can I ask members just to rise for members and members of the public, please, to rise for a minute's silence? Thank you. Staying with item 6, which is the Chairman's correspondence, the next item is the retirement of Rob Salmon, the Director of Finance. As members will be aware, after 38 years as Staffordshire County Council, Rob Salmon is retiring in June of this year. Rob joined us as a clerical assistant in accountancy in 1986 and has built a fantastic career here. After working his way up in a range of roles, Rob is currently the Council's Director of Finance and Section 151 officer. Rob has been instrumental in helping us handle the pressure of local government finances and has just delivered an excellent 5-year plan. I'm sure that members will wish to join me in sending Rob the Council's very best wishes for a long, happy and healthy retirement. We don't normally take, during Chairman's correspondence, we don't normally take speakers, but on this occasion we're going to break that protocol. And I'm going to call Councillor Ian Parry and anybody else who wants to speak and talk about Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a day I didn't think I would witness. I mean, look at him. He's far too young to retire. How can this be? He's even got a new puppy and a grandchild on the way. Is this the time to retire? I asked myself. But so it has. So it has come. And Rob will be leaving us next week. It's going to be a different place without him. It's a unique career in a sense. If not a unique career, it's pretty much an endangered species these days of somebody who joins an organisation at the very bottom rung of the ladder and spends the entire career there, working their way up vertically to reach their very top rung and then exiting. I mean, that is the way to do it. That's class, isn't it? That is the way to run a career. And so we have this in Rob with all of that experience that has been brought to bear. And Rob has been here through, and not always kind of at the top of the tree, but in that top management structure through some of our most difficult times and our most challenging times of all those things going back over the last decade, of all the things we've had to do to make this place into a stably financial place, all those difficult decisions, and all the sound advice that we've had to take from our financial team, including Rob, and more recently, totally Rob, has been magnificent. We've been so lucky with that. We do like homegrown, and Rob and others in our team have been homegrown talents and have done great work for us. The Salmon family is a family business here at Stafford County Council. Wife, daughter of all worked here. This is the end, therefore, of the Salmon dynasty today, I'm afraid. There ain't no more, unless grandchild decides to, fancy a career in local government and wants to join in his or her mum and grandparents' steps. Salmons are very enduring creatures, aren't they? They've travelled long distances. They travel long distances. They know how to get upstream. They're mysterious. Who knows what they get up to sometimes when they've been leaping through those weirs and swimming in those quiet little pools. Who knows what they've been up to? But they're so enduring. They're so prized. These are the things that people want to hook out the water. These are the things that people prize and try and steal from us. But they didn't. Our salmon kept going. Reached the top. The prize of the whole thing. But here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing. Our salmon isn't a fish. Our salmon's a squirrel. Our salmon's no fish. Our salmon's squirrels like no squirrels ever before. We have a balanced 5-year plan. We have a balanced budget. We have some challenges. But I know Rob the squirrel has got it all under control, nicely under control. And I have terrific, total confidence that that's the case. He tells me almost everything. So And the things he doesn't tell me, I probably don't want to know anyway, because it's probably not good for me, but does a fantastic job for us. It's been an absolute treat and pleasure to work with Rob. Good fun, totally professional, an absolute asset to this organisation and to the people of Staffordshire. Rob, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte Atkins, would you like to follow that?
I'm not sure I can follow that, but I have to say that it seems to me a bit dangerous that Rob Salmon is retiring. He's been here from the year dot, and if anyone knows where the bodies are buried, he does. And if he doesn't know, the rest of the family will know. So it seems to me that if he's retiring now, what is it that we don't know, which he knows? Because it seems to me that if he's going now, then why? Because as has already been said, he's far too young. He's got his life ahead of him. Why is he leaving the county council at this point? Is it a rat leaving a sinking ship? I hope not. He doesn't look as if that's the case. But no, more seriously, Rob has been incredibly professional. He's always been willing to give our group advice and has always been, sterling support to explain the intricacies of the budget, to lead us down the right path. And I'll be sorry to see him to go, but very pleased that he's made the decision to go when he's got his life in front of him and he can enjoy his retirement and enjoy his new grandchild as well. So all the best to you, Rob, and hope everything goes well.
Thank you. Ably followed. Can I just also say, Councillor Atkins, it's lovely to see you back in the chamber and on your feet again. Mike Sutherland, it's your turn to try and outdo the two warmest speeches that I've heard about somebody. So over to you, Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Chair. And how do you follow what's been said already? I named Rob a legend in his own lifetime, and I'm convinced after what I've heard this morning, you definitely are a legend in your own lifetime. Now, you served this council really, really well. I can only talk about Rob since 2017, 2018, really. And I remember when I took on for finance, it was Andy Burns. That was the finance director. And I used to have my briefings with Andy, very professional, always laid out. And it was a bit tough to divert away from the agenda. But I remember the one thing he said to me on a moment, he said, when I said, look, you've obviously got a good team, and I've met some of them and what have you, but who's in your absence, because in fairness at the time he was shooting around the world a little bit with another role he'd got, he said, my right-hand man is Rob. Now, actually, I hadn't met Rob too many times other than say hello. So I thought, right, he's my go-to guy. And I'm delighted to say, from the day that I sat with him to the day that I finished in the role, he was superb. So you are a legend in your lifetime and my lifetime. I'll give you an end-of-year report because I was asked by another finance guy for another council. So how'd you get on with Rob? And I've written it down. Good listener. He's prompt with his responses. He's a balanced budget man. Very prudent, but listens, is open to options. Now, the downside is he's a bloody Stoke City fan. But having said that, I had a great cup of tea moment with him when I said in 1975, when I moved here, I had the honour of 2 seasons at Stoke. And not only that, I had some old boy Chelsea guys come up, and we reminisced about that and some of the great sides that were there. So, Rob, thank you for all the support that you gave me while I was in the portfolio. And if I may, thank you for what you've done for Staffordshire County Council. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Philip Atkins.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Robert, yeah, you started a year before I did. Frightening. And back in the days of Richard Tenterbaum as the county treasurer. Grander title, isn't it, really, than a director of finance? You know, but and one thing I can remember about Richard was that he came from Glamorgan, and Glamorgan and Staffordshire seemed to be the two training grounds, Mr. Chairman, for financial acumen and directors. You know, we've and I think through the years of watching Robert grow from a clerk up to where you got today, Rob, is quite something. And I'm pleased to see that it's almost a homegrown person who's coming back as the Director of Finance. And so I think it won't be a loss, because I'm sure that Rob will be helping out some organisation balance the books somewhere. And if he isn't, anybody listening to this webcast, he's very good. And he lives in Staffordshire, so get in touch with him. And I think that's really key to the county council, just to reassure Charlotte, you know. It's one of the best things is balance the books, and as my motto says, money's never a problem, paying it back is. And Rob's one of those guys. He will sort out how you pay the money back over a period of time if you borrow, to invest, to save. Those are the three words that I can hear him saying, and I'll go off and have a think about it. So, enjoy retirement, Rob. Well earned.
Councillor Caroline Trowbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations for your next year, Mr. Chairman. Rob, I absolutely want to follow what everybody else has already said, but from the Audit and Standards Committee, I want to thank you. You've always been there, absolutely rock solid. But the one thing that hasn't been said that I do want to say is that the team that surrounds you, you have built just the best team. And they all work exactly like you. They're absolutely solid and keep this council solid. So from the bottom of my heart, I do want to thank you for what you're leaving behind. And absolutely no-brainer. Baby and a puppy to a computer. Enjoy your retirement.
Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Difficult to follow Councillor Parry. Don't intend to even try. I think when it comes to people's retirements, there's, I suppose, two questions that people will invariably ask of someone towards the end of their career. For people who you feel are going too soon, you tend to ask, why are you going? And that's been the theme of the questions this morning. For people who perhaps overstayed their welcome, behind their back, they tend to be going, when's he going? Rob, I can assure you there's been no when are you going. As you can sense from this morning, it's all why are you going? Rob and I first came into contact with each other 15 years ago when I became a county councillor on the Audit and Standards Committee. And as Rob has come up the ranks, I've seemed to move alongside him. So we've been together as a sort of working together for a full 15 years of my time here, and I'm very grateful for your wise advice. I think one of the things that I just want to touch on that perhaps others haven't is that running a council is, as you all know, because you all have to vote on the way we run our council, is a difficult business. We lay out a set of objectives, and we want to achieve those objectives over the period of the term that we're in office. The challenge to achieving those objectives is making sure we have the money to do so. And as government starts to reduce the amount of money, we have to think about different ways in which we can achieve those objectives. Rob has been an outstanding facilitator of achieving our objectives. Sometimes we want to do things, and we all turn to Rob and say, can we do it? And he goes, I'll have a look. And most of the time, we can find a way of making things happen. Some of the times, not so much. The other thing that Rob has brought us is a rigour and discipline on the way we manage our finances. The adage that you brought in was pound in, pound out. If you want to do something in one place, fine, but you've got to find a way of making savings in another place. And that discipline that he has brought to this organisation has been superb. Rob, on behalf of the County of Staffordshire, thank you very much indeed for everything you've done for the county. 38 years is a very long time, and it's genuinely appreciated. For people who are retiring, I always say the same thing. You're on to a new phase, and I hope you have a really successful next phase of your life. There won't be a minute's silence at the end of this. There'll be perhaps, let's go for it, a round of applause.
It's fair to say that Rob is now suitably embarrassed. Enjoy your retirement, Rob, genuinely so. Item 7 on today's agenda is a statement of the Leader of the Council. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration for the statement, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move consideration of the Leader's statement.
We move to Leader's statement. Item 1 is Staffordshire means back to business. Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. You could feel a slight touch of depression when you look at the increase in the number of applicants. But when we look across the divisions and you look at the good things that we've got that are happening, I was very, very proud last week to have welcomed the chairman to my division where he planted the 500,000th tree, which was quite an occasion. But he took the opportunity at the same time to visit a company that in the last 18 months has increased its work staff with high-paid jobs by 160. If you look at that replicated across the whole of Staffordshire, it provides us with a very, very different picture. And I think it's tremendously exciting. And I look forward to the next visit from the chairman. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody, and congratulations on your mutual re-election. Picking up really on what Councillor Smith has just said and looking at the first paragraph, the word which concerns me because it always suggests complacency, and I trust there isn't any complacency whatsoever, is the word however. It's important to note that the claimant rate is regionally and nationally low. The last 4 leaders' reports covering 6 months have shown an increase in claimants, and that covers the time over Christmas where usually there's a boost in temporary employment to cover the Christmas period. Yet the claimants have gone up steadily and consistently. I am very concerned about the news which is being reported in North Staffordshire over the last month since the last meeting, and that H&R Johnson's have been subject to a management buyout and as a consequence have closed their manufacturing on a site which goes back many, many, many decades, and a site which, in a position which employed my father for 40 years. So it is very close to my heart. Now, those manufacturing jobs are highly skilled jobs, and those manufacturing jobs will not be replaced with equivalent manufacturing jobs. And I do take, not so much issue, but I raise the point about the really encouraging to see that recent logistics developments. Yes, I think that's absolutely fantastic. But the problems with logistics developments, excuse the pun, they are transient developments in some respects. And it's very easy to build a warehouse and fill it up with fast-moving goods to move from one point to another. It's also very easy to move that warehouse somewhere else. And again, very sad news in the last month in North Staffordshire is that the Maersk-operated operation on behalf of Staffordshire company, world-renowned company JCB, is closing their world logistics site in the Chatterley Valley and moving it closer to East Midlands Airport. The reason being, it's a bigger warehouse. I hope the reason being is that the transport connections in North Staffordshire aren't good enough, because we've had improvements on the A500, we're developing the A50 growth corridor, which was mentioned at length last time. We're very close to the M6. We're very close to the airport. My concern is that if their real reason for moving is because of moving primarily to a larger warehouse, that's absolutely fantastic news that they're expanding and growing, and we obviously applaud and know that. But it is disappointing news that that's going to be in the East Midlands area outside of Staffordshire, and we've lost potentially 200 jobs as a consequence of that. I am concerned that the north of the county, certainly my division, obviously Stoke-on-Trent is Unitarian Authority, but that is the lead employer. And it is still the lead employer for Biddulph and Biddulph North, which is the division I represent. And I do know that we're struggling to develop industrial land in my division, in the wider Biddulph area. And it is important that the council takes on board these issues which we've got in the north and looks at ways that we can actually promote and encourage new start-up businesses and business growth and attract people to that area. And I do accept that there's got to be liaison with the leadership board and the panels associated with Stoke-on-Trent. But the north of the county has always been a manufacturing powerhouse, and we do really need to enhance and encourage the skills up there for the sake of this generation, who is obviously struggling, and future generations to come. Thank you.
Councillor Asfar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Start by congratulating yourself and the Vice Chair on the reappointment for the coming year. Just like to endorse the leader's statement and congratulate Burton and South Derbyshire College's new facilities that's been created. Being a member of the Burton Town Deal Board, I've visited these new facilities, and by investing in education and upgrading our facilities, we're laying the groundwork for a brighter future for the students of our town and for our region. Moreover, the revitalisation of these facilities plays a significant role in the regeneration of our town centre. It breathes new life in Burton-on-Trent, attracting talent, fostering economic growth, creating vibrant, dynamic environment that benefits everyone. It signifies that we are not just keeping up with pace with the times, but leading the way towards a prosperous future. So the opening of these facilities is a testament to the hard work, vision, and of many, including the dedicated team at Burton and South Derbyshire College, local leaders, businesses and community members who have supported this project every step of the way. So let us celebrate this achievement and commit ourselves to continuing to support our education institutions and driving regeneration for the betterment of all. Thank you.
Councillor Syed Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to your good self and Deputy Chair as well for your second term. Mr. Chairman, I'm just struggling to find out anything about the good news story about small and medium-term businesses. So I hope the Cabinet member will look into it, especially small businesses encounters multitude of obstacles when it comes to acquiring new customers, sustaining profitability, and sometimes acquiring finance becomes so daunting as well. So, Mr. Chairman, recognizing the importance of technology and establishing an online presence to their supply chain, I'm talking about those corner shops, retailers, and hairdressers. They are the backbone of our economy. They create thousands of jobs. So I would urge the Cabinet member to look into this matter and what support he can offer to them. And especially, we all recognize after this COVID pandemic, they are really facing immense pressure to keep their door open. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Philip White.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and congratulations to you and your deputy on your re-elections. Looking forward to another year with you in the chair. Another update regarding business, which talks about the trends both locally and nationally in terms of employment. and also the work that this council is doing to support good jobs in our county and highly skilled jobs as well. Regarding the statistics, yes, we've been tracking the national trends. As we should all know in the room, the biggest influencer on employment rates and universal credit claimant rates at the moment is interest rates. We're looking forward to those being able to come down over the next few months due to the work that's been done to reduce inflation, and that should have a positive impact nationally on the job situation. What we see in Staffordshire, though, and it's as a result of a lot of hard work over the last decade and a half, is Staffordshire trending well below the national average and massively below the regional average in terms of universal credit claimants. We have a really strong track record in this place of supporting our businesses to create new employment and supporting our people into those jobs. And that is something that we are continuing to work particularly hard at, recognising that nobody who wants a job should be without a job. So, yes, we can recognise our strong track record and our hard work in this area, but we will never be complacent about it. I've often mentioned in this room our jobs and employment brokerage, which joins all of that together. The statement here mentions some of the key investments in terms of employment sites in the county. So the West Midlands Interchange, with 8,500 new jobs coming into the county. I'd also highlight Pets at Home, relocating from Stoke-on-Trent, another example, but into Stafford, with several thousand new jobs. The Chatterley Valley site in Newcastle-under-Lyme, which we are helping to develop with support from the Towns deal, akin to Councillor Afsar's comments about Burton and South Derbyshire College supporting skills and training through the government's Town Deal Fund as well. So thank you, government, for the money to be able to unlock those, which we've used well. And we're supporting similar work all around the county, so Branston Locks and I-54, a couple of other notable examples. We are hard at work in this. Regarding those business choices and where businesses choose to go, businesses will come and go. So we work very closely with JCB. They are a massive employer in our county and increasing the numbers of people that they employ in our county in recent years. Yet their logistics operations are better suited to being near an international airport. Global businesses will make those choices. The key for us is to be strategic in our approach and to make our place attractive to those businesses. So the A50, A500 corridor work that we're doing is a really good example of that. I'm sharing a platform with a director from JCB to talk about exactly that next week at the UK Real Estate Infrastructure and Investment Forum in Leeds, the new and less sunshine-filled version of MIPIN, which I'm pleased to say all 8 of our district and borough councils are attending with us. And on finally to districts and boroughs, Councillor Yates, you mentioned the Moorlands. I was delighted on Tuesday to, for the first time since the new Labour administration took over in the Moorlands, to attend a Moorlands Growth Board meeting. We've been really keen to get that back going, and it's great that your council is back doing that again. Hopefully your colleagues will have reported back it was a really productive meeting. We talked about enterprise space, an area where, by the way, Staffordshire had the highest number of business startups last year that we have ever had since we started recording them, to the point about SMEs. But we also talked about unlocking major investment sites in your area as well. So hopefully asked and answered.
Moving on to item 2 on the leader statement, the capital programme for schools 24-25. Councillor Philip Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations again on your appointment for this next year. I very much welcome this item on the council business. I, as you know, work in education, albeit in Derbyshire. I specialise in working with special educational needs children, so I welcome this capital programme for schools. And it was great on Tuesday to go to Uttoxeter to allay the fears of residents there about the number of student places that we have in Uttoxeter for our people. There seems to be some false information going around that because we're building new residential premises in Uttoxeter, there won't be enough places for our students to go to school. Well, that's untrue. We've got a new first school in Bramshall Meadows, our 2 middle schools in the town. One is expanding slightly, Oldfields, but both schools have the capacity to expand if we need to. And Thomas Lanes, which is our high school, they're 300 students under PAN, so they have the capacity to take students now if people want them to go there, but there's also space on that site to expand if we need to. So in Uttoxeter, there's no need to worry about getting your children educated. We have very good schools. We have the capacity to take on more students. And so please don't worry about that. And I know that the education people in the county do monitor the number of student places that we're expecting in the future. And I've spoken to Councillor Nigel about it many times. I also think it's very important to integrate students with special educational needs into mainstream education, and I welcome the extra spending and funding that will be available to deliver that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Charlotte Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on a well-deserved second term. Quality of school buildings is absolutely vital, but the present capital programme really doesn't help towns like Leek, where there are presently 2 high schools and falling pupil rolls. So it would be far more efficient to have a new school on one site to free up the 2 existing sites. Both present schools have challenges with their buildings, and at the moment, one school has a very, very low roll. But the present capital programme really doesn't facilitate the building of a new school, freeing up the other 2 sites to make it a far better educational experience for our older pupils. And I would hope that in the future that would be sorted out, because it really doesn't enable the best education experience for Leek pupils.
Councillor Anne Edgler.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and congratulations both on your appointments. And with your permission, I would like to mention SNAP. We talk about special needs in this part of the agenda, so I'd like to mention that it's a special needs adventure playground in Cannock. It is a playground for children with special educational needs and disabilities. And I visited this with my mental health hat on a few weeks ago. What a fantastic playground, especially for children in wheelchairs. I would like to hope, Chairman, in the not too distant future, we could find the money to expand these playgrounds throughout the county. It is sad in one way that we need these, but we need to look after these children that desperately need our help. God bless them all. Thank you.
Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Firstly, what I would like to say is I welcome the additional funding which is being directed towards SEND provision. I have a particular issue within Biddulph because we lost our special school to an arson attack many years ago, and to be honest, the town has not really recovered with a competent SEND provision, certainly in the local area since. And with the Cabinet member and my other fellow Biddulph councillor, we had a very positive meeting at Biddulph High School. So I'm very pleased to see that the forward-looking trajectory is one of continual and much-needed improvement in that area. Just 2 other things, nothing negative, just really updates. One is reinforced, autoclaved, aerated concrete. Have we completed assessments on our schools? Do we know how many schools are affected and to what extent those conditions are? And obviously we have an awful lot of academy schools. Are we in touch with the academies, school operators, to see what this situation is with their schools? And is there a sort of short term, how do we manage the immediate risk? Medium term, how do we mitigate the problems? And long term, how do we actually resolve and rebuild those problems out of the way to make them safe and sustainable? And is that included within this fund, or is that a separate fund? And then finally, on a final point, again, I applaud the direction of funding to more energy efficient buildings. The climate change agenda is very much at the forefront and very important. And it's also a very cost effective way of running our buildings, as I'm sure we all know. What I would like to stress as well is the importance of utilising the roof spaces of all these buildings, especially if we are doing structural repairs and improvements, to ensure that we maximise the use of renewable energy, principally solar energy. Principally, schools do operate during daylight hours, so it's an obvious thing to do. But also utilising battery storage technology within the schools, so we can actually take advantage of the much lower energy rates overnight, which are up to a quarter of the day rates. If those schools can plug into that with appropriate battery storage, supplemented by solar electricity in the day, there are absolutely massive, significant and sustainable savings to be made. As well, I'm sure quite a few of us know. So I'd like to, if you're to consider and come back with responses to those two specific things. The RAC issue, how we're dealing with it, and the renewables as part of the decarbonisation. Thank you.
Councillor Philip White.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So Councillor Price is unavoidably detained on another matter, so I'm subbing for him as this was my bailiwick for the 4 years before he took over. But if there are any details that I don't manage to cover, then I'm sure Councillor Price will be happy to pick them up. Firstly, in terms of the programme itself, this is the continuation of a long-standing success story here in Staffordshire. We have a really good track record of spending money well in terms of making sure the provision is there where our learners need it, whether that's in mainstream schools or in our special school estate. And that is borne out by the statistics in terms of the school place offers that we have, where around 99% of our students get one of their preferred free school places, and we're trending above 90% for first choice school places, which compares really well to the national picture. So students in Staffordshire get to go to the schools that their parents want them to go to. Within that, and forgive me for referring to some notes, as I say, I'm a little bit rusty on this one, but within that, in the last 7 years, we've completed over 600 planned maintenance projects, so that's the safe, warm and dry projects to make sure that schools are good places for students to physically be. Over 175 projects to reduce our carbon footprint. So a big part of that is about replacing old boilers and inefficient heating systems, but we're also very active in terms of alternative energy sources and other areas where we can reduce that footprint. So that work is very much there, but we're always looking to find new and innovative ways of doing it. 300 priority projects where there's been a specific issue in a school that needs to be solved, many and varied. And then one that can be underlooked but is really important, over 160 toilet refurbishment projects so that learners feel safe and comfortable carrying out the basic necessities of life when they're at school. And then, most crucially, 13 new schools during that time, including Staffordshire's first secondary school in a generation. And, of course, we've got our first all-through school, secondary and primary, on its way on the old power station site in Rugeley, coming up very shortly. Just regarding the question on schooling in Leek secondary schools, I think there are a few schools around the county that we'd like to see reconstructed, or maybe where there's some consolidation that we might want to do. I don't know enough about the Leek schools to be able to comment specifically, but as you know, Councillor Atkins, that funding comes from a national source. We can't do that locally. I'm quite confident Councillor Price would be delighted to look at that with you and education colleagues in the Moorlands. Just a small point, I mentioned I was at the Moorlands Growth Board earlier this week. I note that the leader of Staffordshire Moorlands Council is a former head teacher who taught in Leek and indeed here in Stafford. At another school perhaps we might quite like to rebuild if we had the chance. So we all work together on these things, don't we? And it's incredibly important, along with the care services we provide, these education services are right up there at the top of our list of priorities, as demonstrated, I think, by our good work in terms of our capital programme this year and over many years to come. And Councillor White is going to address the point about RAC. Thank you.
Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment that Mike Gledhill, the leader of Moorlands, is also a Manchester City fan, so we need to be bound up in common cause. Wonderful. Thank you for your support, ladies and gentlemen. Just to the point about reinforced aerated concrete, you're quite right to raise it. It is a source of concern for many parents of children across the county. I'm delighted to be able to report, confirmed by John Tradewell and Neelam, that we've completed our survey and there is nothing, as far as we're concerned, that needs to be worried about. It is complete and it is tied off as far as Staffordshire County Council is concerned. I'd just like to add to that the point about rechargeable batteries and storage of energy in schools. Councillor Tagg is constantly talking about the things we can do to support the environment. And if there is a route into an environmentally sustainable solution to the use of electricity in the county and in county buildings, I'm sure he will be onto it. But it's about the financials of these things. And indeed, for those people who've done any research into large rechargeable batteries, the installation of the battery is one thing. The recycling of it afterwards is becoming a bit of a challenge too. So we need to make sure that the life cycle of the batteries that we put in place is something that is sustainable, as well as the way that they use electricity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As we move on to item 3 on the leader's statement, is Highways and Transport Programme 24-25, going up to 26-27. After looking at item 15 on the agenda, there's huge similarities. So I'm going to join item 3 and item 15 together. Councillor Jeremy Pert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to you and to the Vice Chairman on your reappointments. Well deserved. I don't want to be parochial, but I did want to thank the Cabinet Member for Highways for putting in £200,000 into fixing the A519 between Coates Heath and Millmease at the peak of the winter. And if you remember, it was the wettest winter in 130 years. So at the peak of that, we put in £200,000 to repair the road. And I sincerely wanted to thank you for that. But I also hope that you will look at the rest of the road in that area and bring it up to the same standard at the earliest opportunity, please.
Councillor Gillian Pardesi.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I might have got this wrong, so I'm happy to be corrected. But my understanding is that our individual budgets within our divisions have been reduced from 30,000 to 20,000. But irrespective of that, and assuming nobody in this chamber is a climate change denier, Chair, if anything, this is a plea to increase our budgets within our divisions. If we acknowledge that we're getting more rain, more flooding, it's causing more issues with damage to our roads and with drains. So, Chair, we really, in my opinion, need to consider additional funding to take that into account. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Keith Flunder.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on you and the Vice Chair's re-election. I just thought I'd take this opportunity just to introduce myself in my new role as Cabinet Support, and I'm looking forward really to working with Councillor DeVille and Councillor Pritchard over the coming year. We are trying our best to try and find out the best way to go forward with highways and how to deliver those highways plans. And I'd like to thank those who have already taken part in meetings with myself from an early start. Many of you have in the north. But I just wanted to warn people, or I think that warn's the wrong word, to let people know that I'm hoping that many of the people in the 4 districts and boroughs in the north will work with me to try and improve the current scenario in terms of delivery within the highways plans. That was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Councillor Asfar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today I want to speak out on a pressing issue that's affecting Burton-on-Trent. While it's commendable that the Cabinet have approved the Highways and Transport Programme for 24 through to 27, promising an extensive investment of over 50 million for road repairs and maintenance, We've got to take a closer look at how these initiatives have been managed in the past. Despite past investments, there have been significant failures in the workmanship and coordination of the roadworks in Burton-on-Trent. As a community, we deserve not just promises of future work, but assurances that the projects will be carried out efficiently, effectively, and to the utmost highest quality. The workmanship on some recently repaired roads has been frankly subpar. Residents have reported incidents where newly resurfaced roads have developed problems within weeks of the work completed. Potholes, poor drainage and uneven surfaces are evidence that some repairs are not as durable as they should be. This not only disrupts daily commutes, but also possesses safety hazards to drivers, cyclists and pedestrians. And furthermore, the lack of coordination in the roadworks around Burton-on-Trent has caused significant inconvenience to residents. Multiple projects often seem to be undertaken simultaneously without a coherent plan, leading to unnecessary congestion and extended travel times. Essential works like these need better scheduling to minimise this disruption. For instance, closing multiple alternative routes simultaneously during peak traffic hours has led to extended frustrations for commuters, businesses and emergency services alike, and then we as the county councillors take the brunt of it. The upcoming investment, which also includes 34 road reconstruction schemes and the 2.75 million for highways, drainage and repairs, is crucial. However, I feel it's imperative that the funding is managed meticulously. We need qualified contractors who can deliver work to the highest standards, and good quality control measures need to be put in place to ensure the road infrastructure we build and repairs to a good standard. And additionally, better communication and planning be required between the council and the contractors. Residents should be informed about upcoming works well in advance. Sometimes I'm finding a few days before the works are going to start, residents are still asking questions. We're not getting the information. And clear timelines and for the expected durations and transparency to help manage these. So in conclusion, whilst I support the Highways and Transport Programme, I urge the Council and Cabinet member to learn from past oversights to ensure that this new wave of investment genuinely leads to improvements in our road network rather than repeating the mistakes of the past. Thank you.
Councillor Anne Edgeler.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Highways. Sorry?
You've just woke us all up.
It's what?
You've just woke us all up.
Oh, sorry. Is my voice loud enough? The A34 into Stafford has been a long time coming. But I'm pleased to say the work will begin on the A34 Weeping Cross Radford Bank area in July. The work on the road will continue right into town on the Lichfield Road. It will take approximately 9 to 12 months to complete and cost, I believe, £6 million. And in Councillor Pardarcy, this covers part of your area as well, leading into town. I'm working closely with Highways to try and minimise disruption. In fact, I have a meeting in the morning regarding the Windsor Road area around Aldi. I will keep residents informed of the work as the work progresses. It won't be easy, but it needs to be done. We've complained long enough. Thank you, Highways, for getting this organised. And watch out, Keith, I'll be on your back. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Edgeler. You made us all a little nervous there, didn't you, with such a declaration? Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to state my appreciation for the work which is being carried out on Biddulph North Division. Not before time, as hopefully the Chief Executive can testify, in a recent study tour which he took with me of the Highlands of Staffordshire, where we're having some significant problems, certainly caused by the excess rainfall which we had over winter. I think both myself and our new Cabinet Support member have very much suffered from that. We've had very little frost, but the frost which we've had has been compounded by the amount of water which has been coming through the drains and roads network, so we have suffered from threes for. But I will say is that the programme for this year, which has just started, is making significant impact on getting things up to date and getting things sorted out properly. What I will say is a slight caveat, because those of you who are familiar with social media, you seem to be damned if you do and damned if you don't. Well, I'd rather be damned if I do than not be damned if I don't. But the reality of it is, which I think would help, and the one thing which is missing, because we all know is that the road crews are precious. We all know that they're moving around the county and they're doing one job and another. We all know is that it's a little bit uncertain when you start digging something, what you find underneath and what you need to do to resolve and repair. Sometimes there's a degree of slippage on the timelines, which are stated. So you get these fantastic boards which come up to say, this road will be closed in 7 days from this date to that date. 7 days come and pass. Tumbleweed goes down the road. People complain about, I thought we were getting these potholes done. Then completely unannounced, without any fanfare or trumpeting, a road crew come up, and I get reports, instant reports coming through, as I'm trapped in my house, I can't get out. What are you doing, having the audacity of repairing these roads? I think we just need to get that communication sorted out. And if it's one message which we need to get across, and you appreciate what I'm saying, Councillor for London, is that we need to do that sort of beforehand. And I know as councillors we get forward notice, which is for the traffic orders months ahead. I know that we try as best to get those out and put them in the press and put them whatever. But if we can have some kind of mechanism to sort of say the day before when they definitely come in, let's see what's happening. What I've been doing on mine, which have been dealt with by the JCB Pro, is I've been to see the supervisor every day, but today, because I see him otherwise engaged, to find out what he's doing tomorrow, post the closures and tell him about tomorrow's programme. And ever since then, the amount of trapped in my household, I can't move my caravan, and I've booked today a night in Blackpool, have disappeared to negligible. So the one message is crack on with the good work which you've started doing. You're making real good inroads, but communication, communication, communication. Thank you.
Councillor Paul Snape.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and congratulations to you and the Deputy Chairman. I was going to answer what Councillor Aptar had just said, but I think Councillor Yates has said most of it. Councillor Aptar was talking about lack of communication. Well, as Councillor Yates has just said, we get notifications on a regular basis when the road's going to be closed and what's going to happen. And it's our job as a county council, let our residents know what's going on, whether by Facebook or whatever it is. That's their road in their district, their area is going to be closed. We know how much extra money has been put into our county by the Cabinet to have our roads done. Yet we still get people moaning the road's closed. We can't have it both ways. So I do support what Councillor Yates has said, that the county is working so hard to get the roads completed. We're accounting for a balanced budget. We're putting money into it, as it's a thing that everyone talks to us about. I mean, perhaps nationally it's immigration, but as a county, it's the roads. When I speak to people, it's what always comes up. So can I thank Councillor DeVille, his little team, and the highways across the whole county for what they're doing. But it is down to us as well as county councillors to ensure it's all communicated to our residents and not then blame other people for it.
Councillor Ian Parry.
Thank you, Chair. I seem to have spent most of my time since Christmas apologising to people, as I'm sure most of you have as well. And it raises the fact, doesn't it, that roads are the thing that affects everyone, no matter how old you are, no matter where you live. It's something which is essential to all of us. And so when they turn out to be in a pretty poor state, and in some places quite a shocking state, because of things outside our control, because of, not entirely out of our control, but because of the worst winter in terms of wet weather we've seen for over 100 years, the highest level of, the farmers in the chamber will remind us of the water levels across Staffordshire being the highest for 130 years. It's had amazing effect upon the condition of our roads. Something I don't think we've ever seen before, something I've certainly never seen before in terms of the impact that's had on our roads. We're not completely blameless in this. We realise that actually we should have realised possibly earlier that this was the new norm, and perhaps we should have reprofiled some of our work to tackle some of those flooding issues and wet weather issues. We should have worked more closely, perhaps, with landowners on their riparian duties as well, in terms of making sure that watercourses flow and that people do not use our highways as some form of drainage ditch. They're not. They're meant to drain off the highway rather than drain into the highway. And we've seen so much of this kind of probably now outdated approach from everyone, not just the county council, from everyone, and an intolerance of all of that, a massive intolerance of all of that. And I get it. I do get it. We understand, as a council, my cabinet colleagues for highways, led by Mark DeVille, also massively get it. They are living and breathing this at the moment. They're having sleepless nights over this at the moment. They're doing all they can, pulling out all the stops. What they realise, what we realise, is actually this isn't necessarily just about money. Because, this year alone, this is the highest capital programme we've ever had in highways, nearly £90 million. We've put an extra £50 million, and only this week, the leader has announced a highway recovery programme, the post-winter recovery programme, which will receive additional funding yet to be specified, but will receive yet other additional funding. But it's not just that, it's the deliverability of all of that, which is what my colleague Councillor DeVille is working on with his team in terms of how can this then be delivered in a fairly short space of time. We're in mid-May, and it's been only recent times that we can actually get teams out there repairing roads, because you can't repair roads when it's flooded or it's pouring down. That's folly. So there's a plan. There's a coherent plan. There is resources in place. What we need is the sun to shine and us all to have a bit of patience, and we will get there. And what we hope to achieve is that this is going to be a new norm. We will be, therefore, geared in a different way. And hopefully, we won't be caught out in the same situation next year. This has been a one-off, a bit of a surprise to us all, I guess, but something I think we've recognised. If this had been some form of other disaster, we'd have been out there now, everybody, with all of our resources tackling it, which is exactly what we're doing now.
Thank you. I have two speakers left before I bring in the Cabinet member. Councillor Janet Sylvester-Hall.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and congratulations as well to you both. Just a couple of things that I wanted to make a note of, specifically to do with an area which is a main route in and out of Lichfield on the Trent Valley Road, and to do with the communication side, some of the things that we've mentioned already. First of all, the one network system, being able to share that with the residents is an extremely powerful thing to do, and I would encourage colleagues that don't already do that to start using it, because it is extremely informative. But what made a difference with this particular scheme was the communications that were done with myself and other members of the County Council that particular arterial route goes through. That was then able to form into conversations with residents, with local organisations, so they too felt very much part of what was going to be going on. And it does have a very big impact when things don't necessarily work when it should do on that particular part of the city. That made it so that it was a very effective and productive programme of works that was done, that I, for one, am very grateful for, not least the residents, but also for the way it was done. There was a letter drop that was put out to local residents and organisations in advance, and then the sympathetic thought to overnight closures. So not only was that work done, but the way it was done is, for my part, commended, and especially for the officers that I think, pardon the pun, went the extra mile to make sure that that was done in the way it was. Thank you.
Councillor Philip Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was great to have Councillor DeVille now as the Cabinet member, and also Keith Lunter. We speak regularly, all three of us, and it was great to actually have the Pothole Pro back home in Uttoxeter, where it all began, and it was great. It's a fantastic bit of machine. It digs out the areas of road that we need doing. The only problem is it's the people that fill the tarmac in afterwards that are causing me some concerns, because I now have a big rumble strip down Bramshall Road, which the Cabinet member is aware of, and we will get that fixed. We actually get £7,000 each, I thought, in our DHP budget. I would like more money, because it's great, because I'd like to do a lot of local projects on that one. And with communication, yeah, I get the notifications, the parish council get the notifications, they put it on Facebook, so people in New Toxteth are well aware of when our roads are going to be closed. So it's all about quality, really, Councillor DeVille now. We're getting out there, we're doing it. We made so many good advancements up to Christmas last year, and it was great, and then suddenly we've had all this adverse weather, and now when you talk to we're back to where we were. All I can say is, can you make sure that the local members get more control of where we go first? I know that you do listen to me. I know my roads very well in New Toxteth, and I know the ones that we need to get done and in what order. And it's very important that that's done. But thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward now to the next few months to getting it sorted.
Councillor Mark DeVille.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and congratulations to you and Mr Greatrex, and my very, very best wishes to Mr Salmon. Really good debate, Chairman. Comments absolutely across the chamber have been taken on board. I think universally, I think everyone would agree that the capital programme that we planned and implemented is absolutely essential. Because as other speakers have said, I think other than the cost of living crisis nationally, immigration, the NHS, they are national issues. The issue within Staffordshire and other counties is the roads that we drive on, because we all use them. So not only is it massively important, it's also massively important to look at the future structure of our roads and the infrastructure of our roads and the asset. And that's exactly why, colleagues, that we've developed and funded this very, very exciting capital programme. Just a few statistics, Chairman, and I'll be very, very brief, but there's been 32 schemes already delivered and completed within the capital programme since we started in 2022. There's a further 34 schemes planned up to 2027. 24 of those 34 are actually delivered this year. So that's a very, very exciting programme. And when you add to that 1.5 million square metres of resurfacing work across the county, that means that the surface of our roads that we all use all the time will be much, much better. But of course, that creates the confusion and the frustration that people unfortunately experience in these areas where we're doing the works. And I absolutely get it. Mrs Pardesi, you're right. All the Stafford members will understand this, and all of the areas across Staffordshire that have had these major projects done will understand this. So, lessons to be learnt. We work really, really hard on communication. We work really, really hard on coordination of these works. And we work really, really hard on the management of these works. Can we do better? I think we probably can. Do we need to constantly look at improving our communication and our coordination? Of course we do. A very, very good point was made that local members know their area better than anyone else. So I think our link and our work with the local members is becoming increasingly important, and absolute guarantee that we will do that. Good example in Mrs Edgela's particular division is communication and prior communication to residents that this work is going ahead. Because residents, 99.99% of them are very, very reasonable people. You know, the businessmen, we want to take the children to school, to get to hospital appointments, we use our roads. But 99.9% of residents understand the need for these improvements and understand the need for these capital works. and understand that there will be some disruption and some inconvenience. And I think it's key, Anne, you're right, that we communicate that in advance. So there's work to do around coordination and work to do around communication. So where we are now, just taking Ian Parry's points, it was the wettest February on record. It's been the wettest winter for many, many, many years. In fact, I did read a fact that in April, there wasn't one single day in April that we didn't have rainfall somewhere in the UK, and that was in April. So we're up against it. What it's left is a massive task to repair our highways. And Ian Parry's right. We are addressing the winter recovery plan as if it is an emergency, because it is an emergency. What are we doing? We're having razor-like focus on repairing not only Cat 1 and Category 2 defects. We have a really, really good output rate on Category 2 and Category 1 and emergency repairs. The area of real concern are the Category 3, the defects that are deemed not dangerous. Well, some of those have been hanging about for years and years and years, and they fill our mailbox up with dissatisfied customers. When are you going to repair me potholes? So this winter recovery plan is totally focusing on reducing that backlog of defects. And we'll be working very, very closely with all members to do that. These challenges that we face, they don't give me sleepless nights. But I will say that I used to dream of England winning the Ashes at the MCG, or Stoke winning the European Champions League. I now have to say, colleagues, that I've got potholes going around in my head. Do we need to work closer with local members? Of course we do. You know your areas better than I do. Keith Flunder does. Alan White does. We'll be doing that. And together, it's our whole objective across the council to improve massively the state of our roads. And through the capital programme and through the winter recovery programme, that is jointly, all of us, what we're going to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Moving on to item 4 on today's leader statement, which is the climate change strategy development framework as an update. Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you. Just to let you know, I'm not going to be standing up much after this one, but this side of next May, there's only a few of us, so we have to cover a lot of ground. So. I think it's actually very pertinent that Councillors DeVille and Councillors Tagg are sitting together, because one of the key things when it comes to the Climate Change Strategic Development Framework update, and I was reading the Cabinet reports on this, is the multiple references to the adaptation strategy. And I think the debate which we've just had to do with highways really could be absorbed. You put the two parts of it together. You could really have put the three parts of it together, because what we're talking about is the issues with dealing with climate change. And it's the issues we adapt to those changes with climate change. We've just had the wettest winter, which I actually believe Councillor DeVille was on record. I think one of the statistics which Radio Stoke came up with is we'd had 60 inches of water over winter, which was absolutely ridiculous to contend with. And I think there's two things what we need to be looking at with the adaptation strategy, and I haven't seen much detail on this yet. One is the management of water, and one is the management of temperature. And the one thing about climate change is that it's not going to give us a consistent 1.5 degrees across the board. So it's not going to be 1.5 degrees hotter in December or whatever, and 1.5 degrees hotter in July and whatever. We're going to have swings of really cold weather, which is going to damage our infrastructure. We're going to have swings of really hot, dry weather. And obviously we're having swings of very, very wet weather. It wasn't so long ago during the COVID lockdown where those 12 weeks where some of us who weren't members of the of Parliament in charge were stuck in our gardens. We couldn't go out any further. And we had 12 weeks of effectively wall-to-wall sunshine. It actually made it quite pleasant and quite survivable in some respects. So what I'd like to sort of do, and I'll come on this with an intervention when it comes to the final part, which is the HS2, is I think we've really got to not so much look at what's new, but to look at how we do things, and you've touched on this already, Councillor DeVille, and Councillor Parry touched on it as well. But the water tables are rising. We've got a lot of old medieval footprint roads in the county which don't have proper drainage. Some of them have soakaways, but they don't have joined-up drainage. And without the investment and the re-engineering of these old byways and roads and connecting routes, we will constantly have pop-ups every winter and constantly be repairing and resurfacing every spring. So we really need to re-engineer how and what we're doing. And the same comes with temperature control. I think there's not just a move towards air-sourced heat pumps and different systems to provide an alternative carbon neutral way of heating, but that's got to be combined with providing cooling, which again has a significant draw on electricity. So it is getting those balances right. We've never been a country which has had to have air conditioning considered as a matter of course, but we are moving in that direction, and it's getting everything planned for that level of adaptation, and somehow finding the monies and the resources and the payback to actually do that. So that's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Councillor Philip Atkins.
Thank you, Chairman. I went to, I think Mr Yates has got a point, actually. We have to think about keeping everything together. And I attended a meeting called by our local Member of Parliament, Kate Knifeton, in Marchington last week about the flooding that had happened in the village. And she'd managed, the hardest bit wasn't calling the meeting, the hardest bit was to get the right people there. So we had Jamie Cooper, our flood management officer, we had somebody from Highways, but the biggest problem was getting anybody there from the Environment Agency and Severn Trent. And explaining, and Marchington's, you can find it on our website, has got a Section 19 report, which is quite a detailed report, and there's quite a few places across the county where it logs, codifies, puts down all the data of how much rain there's been, what happened, which road flooded, and everything else. Marchington has got about 14, 15 premises that flood, and they have floodgates on them. So you have to recognise the trauma of having your house flooded time after time again. You've got to move your car. You've got to get your furniture upstairs. You have all your plugs this high off the floor. You have waterproofing that high off the floor. I've actually taken people who've complained about flooding to the local there, the Dog and Partridge, and pointed out the floodgate as you walk through the back door, which is about as high as this front of the chamber. That's the water problem that they suffer. But they also suffer in several other ways that needs to coordinate more things together. Because we don't clean a gully out or it's smashed or broken at Birch Cross, the road floods and everybody's jumping up in arms because they can't get to Burton-on-Trent from Uttoxeter. The road floods further along, and we have got a team at Marchington, volunteers who come out and put up the road block signs and everything else. Their equipment was stolen within about 6 months. So they've had to put it somewhere else. But what came out from the meeting to me were two things. When these roads are flooded, the village is cut off. Children can't get to school. Carers can't get to look after the elderly in the homes. People can't get out to do the shopping. So there's ongoing repercussions. But the residents from the next village down the valley turned up as well, which was Drakeford in the Clay. And they were moaning about the block road, but about a manhole cover being blown off on the A515 and cars disappearing into this manhole. It's a hole in the road, a main road. And the road floods, and you can't get through there either. So they were on about that. But it came out that Severn Trent have got 3 pumps in Marchington. The brook normally flows, one when it comes up a bit, second when it gets even worse, and third when it really gets bad. And the Environment Agency couldn't really give a damn. They just said, it floods. Severn Trent said, we try and pump it out over the flood bank at Sudbury into the River Dove. But obviously what they hadn't realised was that they're blowing the manhole cover on the A515 off to leave a traffic hazard that cars could disappear down in. Oh, we'll have a look in that. Why can't they lock the cover? It's dead easy. And then the villagers told me that the water disappeared when the pumps kicked in within 13 minutes. So when you get into these stories, very local stories, there are some real issues that we need to not just work about getting the roads fixed and get the gullies emptied. It's remembering where the water goes and what the repercussions of that is, because that is quite key. And this ain't strange weather. 1974, the Radio Times had got Ice Age coming on the front of the Radio Times. In 1607, Somerset got totally flooded and 35,000 people died because of a surge in tide that went up the Bristol Channel. We have extreme weather. It's just we're not used to it. So you'll see outside at the moment that the farmers are planting food like mad. It's too late for anything to crop properly in some of these spring-sown crops. There was a food security conference 2 days ago in number 10 Downing Street, and they've finally woken up to the fact you can't put solar panels on productive farmland. You need to be fed. Put that at the top of your list.
Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, can I congratulate you and also your Vice Chairman? I failed to do that earlier on. And thank you again for the support that you give to us in the local divisions. Chairman, I wanted to pick up on a word in the last paragraph of this report where it says that we're going to revise the plan. I'm really very keen that in the plan we should incorporate the tremendous amount of work which is going on in the local divisions. It seems that we've got a fabulous plan that covers the higher level, but we need to go back to basics and look at what's going on within our patches. And particularly, Chairman, I would point out that there are a massive number of funded schemes, several of them government schemes, that will support local initiatives. If only we get together and work with our local communities, I think there is a tremendous amount more that we could deliver, and I would really very much like to see it ultimately incorporated into the revised plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Can I just confirm, Councillor Pardacey, you didn't want to speak on this? You indicated you didn't after you... Yeah. You do want to speak?
Yeah,
in that case, Councillor Gillian Pardacey.
Yeah, but Chair, I'm finding it quite distracting, the constant up and down, in and out, opening of doors, closing of doors. No, are people getting bored?
Councillor Pardacey, we'll deal with that privately, but thank you. Councillor Richie Cox.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulate both as well. I'm really starting to support what Councillor Atkins has said. I think it's absolutely imperative that we understand what our farmland is for and use. And if we're not careful, we're going to have a serious issue. But the point that he raised was exactly the point that I made reference to when I submitted a small petition, but nevertheless a petition, on behalf of a village within my division, and I did say at the time that I'm sure there are other examples throughout the county for sure, and it is having that strategy to really understand that some of our communities do get cut off, and we've got to start thinking how we're going to address that, because it is going to affect them big style. So when we get these rainfalls and so forth, we are closing down communities. And some of those communities do not have the amenities. They don't have shops. Some don't even have a pub. But the thing is, if they had a pub or had a shop, nobody would get deliveries into it because they're flooded. So you can see the problem that we have. And it is across the county, and I recognise that. We will all have examples because we're a rural county. So it is something that we've got to address, but we've also got to understand how communities are. I know, talking to my division residents, I know what their priorities are, but I have to be honest with you, it isn't necessary. And this is I'm going to get shut down here, I know I am. We all recognise that we have a climate crisis. But the day-to-day issues that people are facing today are about what affects their immediate lives and their day-to-day business. And we've got to address that. So there is a balance. I certainly believe that there is a problem with the climate change and everything. Councillor DeVille mentioned about the amount of rain we had. I read a report that it's the largest rainfall we've had for 130 years. So tell me what the discussion was 130 years ago. Was it climate change? No, I don't think it was. But I'm not a denier of climate change. I just think we've got to address issues that concern people in a day-to-day, because otherwise, and I know we've got to protect the future and we've got to do right, but we've got to get the balance and work the two together and not sacrifice one for the other. And I think that's what I'm employing, that we've got to work it out. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor John Francis.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Richard's spot on there. The point about climate change is the Earth goes through cycles anyway. This is probably just another cycle the Earth's going through. I admit that human endeavours and workshops from the Victorian age carrying through to the 20th century contributed to it. But we could bankrupt this country doing a lot of this work, and our carbon emissions come down to about 1% or even less, 0.8% of the total world emissions. China, when I worked in the power industry, were building one brand new coal-fired power station every month for years. And they don't mine it. Most of their power stations are built right next to open cast coal mines. And it is horrendous. And it's about 75% of the pollution in the atmosphere comes from China. And we're to blame because we buy their goods, so that's another issue, I had flooding in my area in 2020. At Ingersea village was cut off for a week, and the farm shop lost thousands of pounds in business. I ended up getting to sort it out with our highways team, Richard Racing and Co., which did a brilliant job. And the only way we could get it done was I got the local farmer with his potato machine, spraying machine, to pump the water out, and that took 2 days. So it is a serious issue. As far as solar farms go, I've got 2 planning applications in at the minute and another 4 on the way. On greenfield pasture land, which is absolutely ridiculous. Why this government, or the previous government, or the previous government to that, didn't pass legislation that every new house build and every new factory build, like the blooming great big sheds we've got all around Stafford, and even the bigger one at Aston by Stone, why they didn't pass legislation to make them put solar panels on those sheds and brand new houses, I don't know. And to be quite frank, we've lost the plot when we start building solar farms on good agricultural land, and Staffordshire is 70% agriculture. So if we get hundreds of these planning applications come in and get built, they destroy the environment. I've got Droyington Lane in my division, which has got to have HGV lorries and Artex going up and down there to build this solar farm, which will take 6 months. They're going to destroy the lane, hundreds of years old oak trees, and they're putting passing places in. Well, when I see it, I'll believe it, but I don't think it's going to happen, Mr. Chairman. So let us lobby Parliament and find out why they won't pass a legislation to put solar farms on new builds. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Simon Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and firstly, congratulations on your reappointment and also your Vice Chairman. This climate change strategic framework is to support our, as the County Council, rolling 5-year climate change action plan, and it identifies the actions we need to take to reduce those carbon emissions as we set to get to net zero by 2050. Now, of course, everybody will know we've already reduced our carbon emissions by 50% since 2019, which has been a great achievement. However, there's still a long way to go. And also, we have an ambition to create a climate-resilient county, which, of course, encompasses quite a lot, as what has been said in the comments. Now, the framework sets out our principles for achieving that resilient climate change county, and that's ensuring that all council directorships and services understand the need to reduce emissions and to consider and mitigate the risk of the changing climate. Now, of course, we brought it to this council in the lead statement a couple of meetings ago, the flood risk management strategy, which was really well received at the time. I think it's a really good strategy that takes us forward. We're also, as Councillor Yates has said, working on the adaptation strategy, which will come to Cabinet in due course. So those are two things I think we're addressing some of the issues that have already been raised during the debate on this. And of course, we want to capture innovation, aspiration and a positive example that we can make as a county council, not only to our districts and boroughs who we're working very closely with, but also to our communities and to businesses across the county as well, to embrace the opportunities that come out of this agenda as well, to reduce emissions and to become more green and environmentally friendly. We also want to empower our council staff and us as members to be able to put suggestions forward so we can add them into our plans, and that's why scrutiny of this climate change action plan as it gets refreshed in the autumn is really important, and it will go to scrutiny before it comes to council. So our approach is really about using robust data to obviously analyse the climate impact and the climate change that's happening and respond to that as an organisation on behalf of our county. And that, again, will be the adaptations, it will be the flood risk management, but it will also be the energy efficiency and a sensible approach, really, to energy production. I take on board the comments that John Francis has said, and I think as a county we must encapsulate that into a sensible policy, which is what we're aiming to do. And I think it's really ensuring that our climate change ambitions are throughout every strategy we have as a county council. And I'll keep saying all the time that every cabinet member on this authority is a climate change cabinet member. Every officer is, and every member should be as well, an advocate for it across the board. And I think a key part of the framework is continuing to work with our partners, and really key that we do that with our districts and boroughs, and also that we do that with our communities. And we will be relaunching our Climate Change Action Fund. There's a question about it later, Councillor Yates, which I'll go into more detail, to encourage community groups, schools, church halls, all to apply for funding so that they can begin their course on reducing carbon emissions out in the communities. And that's supporting those local improvements we can make in every town, village and division in the county even. Also, we're encouraging the support and transition of business to a more green economy. And we've announced recently, it went through Cabinet, the Green Solutions plans, which were introduced by the Deputy Leader, and a scheme which businesses can apply to get funding to do their journey. So we will, as I said at the beginning, be updating the Climate Change Action Plan as we go forward in the autumn. And that's a sensible approach to continue on our course to get to net zero, which is really key that we do. And one last point is Councillor Smith's, Mr Smith's point on that funding. I think there are sources of funding out there that our communities can tap into, and community organisations, and we will be making our communities more aware of those, and I can assure Councillor Smith we're taking that on board. Thank you.
Moving on to item 5 on the leader statements, which is the Staffordshire County Council Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure Strategy and LEVI update. Councillor Mark Whittington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't know whether to speak on the last item or on this item, but and I'm really pleased that Councillor Tagg has said that this is going to be a green thread that goes right through county, because it's one of those things where one thing impacts on another. Just going back to the last item, Philip Atkins said that we're already going through a point where the price of food, of wheat, of barley's gone up by 40% forwards from what it was. You will get more expensive bread, you will get more expensive beer, but what really concerns me is if we don't do something as a world, not as a Staffordshire, as a world, if we don't do something, there won't be any food. The food will be restricted, and that's what's ultimately going to be the problem. Water and food. I know we've got too much water here, but there's a lot of places with not enough. So this is really, really serious. The reason that I've stood up about this infrastructure money, which is what it really is, about putting points in. The infrastructure, and I've said it before in this chamber, the infrastructure that National Grid look after is designed to distribute to towns. So all of those big infrastructure points are actually away from where they want to put solar panels, the places where quarries and such like, where they won't impact upon food production. We've got to be really careful. We are the second tier. I heard the talk about districts and parishes. We should be lobbying government and saying, look, we need more money going into national power to make sure that those infrastructure points are in the right place. You need 3-phase to do a fast charge on a car. So you work that out over the whole of Staffordshire. If we want 2,000 or 3,000 fast charge points, we're not going to be able to do it. We've ripped a lot of our power station infrastructure out. We haven't got nuclear power online yet. We are going to be in the doo-doo, in a bad place. No food, no power. You think it's bad now? If things aren't addressed, this will look like a rosy day in the sun. Thank you.
Councillor Tina Clements.
Thank you, Chair. I've waited a long time for this EV strategy. As a driver of an EV over the last 4 years, whilst I agree with some of the comments that Councillor Winnington has said, I think he needs to do some more research. I just want to start by saying thank you to the former Cabinet member for this report, which was Councillor David Williams, and for the time that he gave me and the Prosperous Staffordshire Committee in getting this strategy to where it is today. Whilst I welcome it, it does need some tweaking. The majority of EV chargers are going to be going into our town centres, and the County Council are working with borough councils and districts because they'll be responsible for where the chargers need to go. If you charge a vehicle at 55 kilowatts, which is what is suggested, my vehicle, that will be charged within half an hour. Surely, if we're going to put EV charging into our town centres, what should we be encouraging those users to do? Plug and go, or plug and go into the town centre to spend money in our shops, in our restaurants, in our cafes and whatever else? We need to look at what is right for each town and borough. Fast, rapid chargers are not the way forward. Destination chargers, 22 kilowatts, are the way forward and are future-proof. Currently, there's about 6 vehicles that will charge at 55 kilowatts. I don't see many of them driving around our county today. You may see 1 or 2 of them on a road if you go up the motorway. So my plea to the new Cabinet member, Councillor Ville, is that I hope he affords me the same time to make this strategy the best it can be and to ensure that we've got the right chargers in the right places with the borough and districts working with us and not against us. Thank you.
Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Yates, can you give us a second? Councillor Francis, can we have the discussion as in the council and not private discussions? I genuinely appreciate it. Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, I'm sure Councillor Francis will be pleased to know that I glided here on my electric vehicle.
Councillor Yates, let's go to the matter in hand.
We are going to the matter in hand.
I spoke to
Charged up by solar panels on my house, so that's no farmland used there at all. I do support the point about destination charges, and in the Stafford Moorlands, I'm pleased to report that we are imminently installing destination charges on our employee and visitor car parks, including leisure centres throughout the Moorlands, and the first 3 installations should be going in effectively any time now. Just looking at the Cabinet report and reading the Cabinet report, I'm interested to see that there's a large emphasis being directed towards residential streets, and there's an acknowledgement that there are limited space on some of the residential streets. So there is a call, an appreciation that it will require the use of build-outs, which will allow the space to be put in for the actual charges. Now, the build-outs have an issue with regard that you can't put a build-out outside everybody's individual house. So there will be displacement of cars which ordinarily park in one place, having to park a little bit further down the road, and that needs a degree of handling and a degree of communication, but obviously I support that. But the other thing which I appeal about, there's one thing about build-outs, is that they're often used for traffic calming as well, to cause a natural stop in a non-priority direction and allow traffic to pass and make our neighbourhood safer. So there is an absolute fantastic opportunity for joined-up thinking about ensuring that those build-outs are prioritised in positions where traffic calming can be enhanced at the same time as the electric vehicle charging points can be implemented. So what I would like to say is that a little bit of thought and planning is done with the districts and with the individual ward divisional councillors, so that we can actually consider how best used to make multiple advantage of the bill points which will have to be put in the densely residential areas, and I think that is an opportunity which shouldn't be missed.
One speaker before I bring in the Cabinet member, Councillor Davies-Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I looked at this report and I thought, I hope we don't feel that it's all about Jaguar Land Rover. It's about Staffordshire County. And I wanted to look again at a piece in the report which said, it's projected that this grant funding will unlock private sector investment of 10 to 15 million pounds for Staffordshire. The grant requires the delivery of both off and on-street charging infrastructure and a focus on on-street. Now, perhaps, Chairman, I might just mention to members the reality of what is involved in installing a major EV charging centre. Firstly, in my own division's case, to provide access onto the site, 2 bus stops need on the site. There has had to be a facility to retain the great crested newts within the site and to put them back in the pond. The cost of the barrier, £100,000. Because we are looking, wherever we possibly can, at looking at brownfield sites, to recover a brownfield site and get rid of the problems in this particular case where it was a council dump will cost thousands and thousands and thousands. The developer is looking to put in a green land corridor which will incorporate 170 trees. That will screen the EV points. Ultimately, the site will attract 1,000 new jobs. But, Chairman, can you believe that the National Grid are saying they want £2 million to connect the development so that the provision can be provided for the EV sites? Chairman, I find this incredible that on one hand we're trying to say from the government's point of view, let's help developers to install EV charging points, and at the same time we're looking at £2 million to connect it. Chairman, the cost of bringing on small developments of this sort of, I say small, it's a £20 million development, but a relatively small development compared with Jaguar Land Rover, I doubt very, very much whether in 10 years' time there will be any small developers that will want to take on this, or even any small developers at all. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Simon Tagg.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, this is a dual portfolio responsibility for the rollout and the Levi funding. Obviously, I give thanks to Councillor Williams for his work on this over the last couple of years, and I'll be working closely with the new portfolio, the Councillor DeVille, on this. And I think we have a staged approach to this. I think if you read this strategy, you'll see it's about getting those destination charging points in place that Councillor Clement talks about in our town centres, in our shopping areas, etc. And we're seeing that now. Anybody that goes to, if I go to my local town centre, I can see charging points beginning to pop up all over the place. The new Castle car park in town is going to have, in the town centre of Newcastle, is going to have a series of new charging points on the ground floor. So that's beginning to happen. I think the more difficult thing, and has been touched on earlier, is that sort of residential street charging. And I don't really think we're there yet on how we're going to do that. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of thought being put into it. And in this latest round of levy, we are beginning to, in our offices, we've got a really good levy team, I'll call them that, of our offices here at the County Council. We're giving some real good thought to that, and I think that's the next stage. I think it might be useful, Mr. Chairman, if we do hold if we can get our team to brief members at a members' event at some stage on this to go into more detail. I think I completely take on board the fact that I think it was either Councillor Smith or others that said, we really need just almost at a district divisional level to look at this as well, to see how it affects our communities and how we can get our communities signed up. Because I don't know about you, but every time on the roads now there are more and more of the green registration plates which show obviously an electric vehicle. There can be more and more. We know we are moving in that direction. But one last thing I would say, and Councillor Parry will ensure that I do say this, is this money has been given to us to coordinate and oversee this. We're not delivering this ourselves unless it's on our own land or it's in district councils' land, car parks, for example. This is private sector led. And there are many private sector companies out there who are looking to move into this area to provide these charging points and the infrastructure. So as I say, looking forward to working with Councillor DeVille on taking this agenda forward.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6 of the leader statement, which is the Section 75 Agreement for Adult Social Care Assessment and Case Management and Occupational Therapy in Staffordshire. Councillor Charlotte Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From October next year, we'll be seeing new adult social care charging reforms, which are expected to be introduced at that time, including a cap of £86,000. What impact will this have on the new Section 75 agreement? And what impact will the new charging reforms have on the overall social care budget of the County Council?
Councillor Jeremy Pert.
Thank you, Chair. I'm aware of the forthcoming CQC inspection, which will happen at some stage between now and the end of 2025. And I was part of the social care working group that was led by Councillor Richard Cox, which looked at undertaking the scrutiny of the existing social care system and within the County Council. And what was really clear was that the relationship with Midlands Partnership Foundation NHS Trust was a unique relationship that other councils don't have. And whilst many talk about partnerships, and it's very difficult to really evidence strong, beneficial, system-wide partnerships, and I think this is one of them, and is to be really lauded, and certainly one of the outcomes from the social care working group was picking up the strength of that relationship, and we even have shared roles at a senior level across the County Council and the NHS Trust. So I think this is a real good demonstration of actions as well as good words. The final thing I'd just like to say is we also welcome the pre-decision scrutiny that was offered the scrutiny committee on that basis as well. Thank you.
Councillor Mike Wilcox.
Thank you, Chairman. And I know it's a couple of hours ago, but congratulations to you and to the Deputy on your appointments going forward. And I bring a bit of light relief to members that we're moving away from climate change and highways issues to something as equally important, which is health and well-being. Councillor Atkins makes a point about the charging reforms that are coming in next year. Yeah, absolutely. And we need to be ahead of the game to make sure that we can address those. We have, as Councillor Pert said, an absolutely brilliant relationship with MPF2, which I think we can build on as we go forward. We work really well with them. They've delivered the Section 75 agreement for us in the past to a really good standard. So it really is encouraging that we want to keep that relationship going. We know there are going to be challenges ahead. We know that numbers are going to increase, but we're really committed to working with MPFT to make sure that they can deliver within the budgets that have been allocated to that service. If it becomes the case that looks as though it's going to be struggling, then we will sit down with MPFT and work with them to ensure that our residents get the proper service that they require. So it's really important that we do that. Councillor Pert mentioned the relationship we have with MPFT, and since taking on this new role, I've certainly seen that at first-hand experience. I've been able to meet with the people in MPFT, as well as talking to some of the people on the front line who deliver those services for them, and I'm really full of admiration for what they do. So it really is a good partnership. This is a good piece of work. It's worked well, and I'm sure it will work well in the future, Chairman.
Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to rise to talk briefly about the Section 75, but I was actually rising to check if Nigel Yates is okay. You've not spoken to this one? No? It's to support Councillor Pert's comments about MPFT, actually. They have been steadfast partners with us over many years now. The Chief Executive, Neil Carr, has been absolutely superb in role. And we transitioned from an arrangement where we had Stafford and Stoke-on-Trent Partnership Trust into MPFT. That occurred seamlessly. And to Councillor Atkins' points, as these changes take place, we've found ourselves with MPFT being able to adapt to the changes that come into the Section 75. They have been flexible, welcoming partners, and I'm sure that's the way it will continue in the future.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7 on the leader statement, which is the provision of apprenticeship services 2024. Councillor Nigel Yates.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this one, but I now feel invited and empowered. So thank you, Leader. I'd hate to disappoint, but I want to bring this back to highways in some respects. The reason I say that, I mean, and also bring it back to the first point on the Leader's statement, which is the Staffordshire means back to business, because obviously the number of young people who are unemployed has increased slightly. And, you know, I think in some respects we should be looking at almost apprenticeship schools to aid. And the reason I bring it back to highways is that whilst the repairs were being done to a very high and professional standard on the pertinent roads on the streets of Biddulph North, I was speaking to the supervisor and the highway crew. I spoke to 5 people. The supervisor came from Derby. 2 of the chaps on the highway school came from Brigg. And then he qualified that very quickly to say it's near Scunthorpe. I happen to know that, but Brigg at Scunthorpe. The other 2, did they come from Biddulph? Did they come from Stoke-on-Trent? Did they come from Stafford? They came from Cardiff. So we brought a crew together, assembled a crew to do a fantastic job on a local road in North Staffordshire. And nobody is local. That money has been transferred out of the site. I've got no ill feelings towards the good folk of Derby, Scunthorpe or Cardiff, but surely there comes a point where we have to sort of look at why that labour is so transient. They're also being put up in a hotel at Stafford at £100 a night, I believe, so we're helping the local community in one respect. But surely we should be looking at how we're managing these teams and perhaps offering apprenticeships at those levels to improve the opportunities and improve the number of local procurement company operations, which can act as subcontractors either directly to ourselves or directly to Amy. So it's it must be a lack of opportunity in the local marketplace, either on the contract basis, which Staffordshire County Council are directly in control of and responsible for, or actually with training within the locality, which our primary contractor Amy is responsible for, and we can put leverage on. But I was, as laudable as they were and as hard-working as they were, I was disappointed at the geographical spread, and there wasn't no local people working on local roads.
Councillor Philip White.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is a good news story in terms of the county council setting an example for employers in Staffordshire. We all know that the apprenticeship levy isn't without its challenges. That's principally for smaller businesses because it covers training costs, it doesn't cover salary costs. We do an enormous amount of work in terms of promoting apprenticeships and helping our training providers, who are fantastic, by the way, our colleges and universities, delivering these training courses to make sure that they join up well. But in terms of this authority and what we do, we have a much higher percentage of our workforce than the average across Staffordshire who are being trained through apprenticeships. That is good news. A vast number of apprenticeship standards that we offer people within the authority, including within highways and other activities within the Economy, Infrastructure and Skills Directorate. We will continue to expand that and to encourage more of that to happen. The only point I'd make in terms of that tiny little sample on that road in Biddulph is bear in mind, we were discussing earlier our very low unemployment rate here in Staffordshire. There is real competition for employees in Staffordshire. We do actually employ a lot of people from Staffordshire fixing our roads. If you wanted to come over to Burton and talk to the crews working on our roads there, you'd find quite a lot of Burtonians, for example. So, and a lot of people from Cannock as well fixing roads in Burton at the moment, funnily enough. So, these little micro samples, just be careful of them. Our low unemployment rates in Staffordshire mean, yes, we are a net importer of employment in many areas. We always look to employ local people. We do a massive amount in terms of supporting, training, and upskilling, including for apprenticeships within our county and within the county council, and we will continue to increase and enhance that.
Item 8 on the leader statement, which is Staffordshire's all-age carer strategy 2024 through to 2029. Councillor Moxon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, and thank you, and well done on your election for another year, and the same for you, the Vice Chairman. In Staffordshire, the 2021 census identified 1,610 children between 5 and 17 that have a caring responsibility. That means before going to school or after school or coming home in lunchtime and weekends that they take time to look after usually a relative, sibling or a parent. So I think it's absolutely essential that we do together with others what can be done to support and identify those young people so that we can put together a good strategy and help them. So as part of the strategy, young people were spoken to, and they identified a number of areas that they saw a need for, and that's a little bit more support, being identified earlier, more awareness amongst their peers and other people and schools of what they have to do each day, opportunities to take a break. So within this strategy that has been developed together with the ICB, there are 7 priorities that look towards doing those things over a period of time. So just simply, I would ask all members here to support where they can this strategy, embrace it, because young people, as well as adults, which I'm sure the Cabinet Member for Health and Care will speak about, deserve our support in able to, children in particular, while they're doing this, also lead a childhood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Charlotte-Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to see the strategy because unpaid carers do an amazing job. They save the state a staggering £162 billion a year, equivalent to a second NHS. Yet, in many cases, they receive very little recognition and support, and they can feel very isolated. That's particularly for young carers, but also for adult carers as well. And what I find staggering is that we're seeing thousands of unpaid carers being pursued by the DWP for inadvertently accidentally breaching their earnings limit, sometimes by as little as £1. And then they're being pursued relentlessly by the DWP to pay large sums of money back, which they simply don't have. People who are carers are living on a shoestring. Now, they don't have lots of money saved up in the bank because it's all spent on caring for their loved ones. And they don't usually have much of a chance to earn. Sometimes that earning potential is their one break from that family caring responsibility. And it seems to me that a government that pursues thousands, I mean, it is thousands of carers, because they've inadvertently breached that earnings limit, is an uncaring government, particularly given the tremendous debt of gratitude we give to carers, not just as individuals who know those families, but as a society. And I really hope that the government will think again about the way it treats carers, because it really is unacceptable.
Councillor Mike Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. Words cannot express in this chamber the valuable contribution that carers make across this county, helping loved ones live healthier and more independent lives. And it's important that we do all we can to support carers through this process. And what was particularly apparent in the surveys that have come back is the fact that carers just need that bit of extra help from us to be able to help them, whether that's in relation to respite, whether it's in relation to get additional help and support, whether it's to do with finance. We need to be there to support these people. This new strategy that's being compiled will allow us to make sure that we are addressing those situations and that we are reacting to the information that carers tell us that they need and want, and we deserve to give it to them. One important recommendation that came from Health and Care Review and Scrutiny Committee was to ensure that the strategy was circulated, in particular to head teachers via the Schools Forum. This is to make sure that anyone in the education arena understand about young carers and the valuable contribution they make, and that we do all we can to support these children to be children. That really is important. So we will make sure that the action plan that we put together, which we will work through with overview and scrutiny, addresses those issues, and that the strategy has some meaning, and the action plan will make sure that we're able to deliver that and take it forward. There's lots of areas within it, the strategy, that need to be developed as we move forward. Part of that, a new ICT platform that needs to come forward. These are really innovative things that will help in everything that we're trying to do for the carers. And just while I have your attention, members, to remind you of an event, an exciting afternoon event we had in this council on Tuesday, the 4th of June. You're going to be treated to a wonderful lunch to begin with. I think it's going to be a wonderful lunch to begin with. But then in the afternoon, more importantly, we're going to have some awareness training around the new carer strategy. We're also going to have a session on supporting living services. And then finally, we're going to have the CEO, Kendra Gray, who's going to come from the Burton Addiction Centre to talk to us about the fantastic work that they do. So please, put this date in your diary, Tuesday the 4th of June in the afternoon, for a really good session on helping you to help your electorate, to help those people you represent, to be able to signpost them, to assist in the work that we do with carers, to make sure that they are valued and that we give them all the help and support that they need. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to say thank you to all the carers across Staffordshire for all the work that they do. So many of them unpaid. There's probably quite a few carers in this room, actually, if you think about it, looking after grandchildren while parents are out at work, helping with elderly relatives, and I think I've got the T-shirt for that one. But, you know, a lot of people in this chamber helping out and thousands of people across the county of Staffordshire. So thank you for everything that you do. The government has recognised the work of carers through the Care Act in 2014. It's 10 years old now, so we sometimes forget that the Care Act actually exists, and some of the work that we're doing now flows from the requirements set out in the Care Act. I think at the time we estimated that unpaid carers put in £1.6 billion worth of care into the county of Staffordshire as part of their day-to-day lives, and that's a tremendous effort. We have set up the Dignity in Care Awards, and each year it's absolutely wonderful for the portfolio holder for health and care to go along to those Dignity in Care Awards and say thank you in a formal sense to those people who give of themselves to others with very little recognition, actually, other than the joy of knowing that they can care for somebody and make their lives just a little bit better. Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to item 9 on the leader statement, which is the extension of the dynamic purchasing system agreement for the supply of residential and nursing care home placements. I have no speakers, so I'm going straight to the Cabinet Member. Councillor Mike Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. Making sure that timely access to care home placement for people who can no longer live independently is really important to ensure that those most vulnerable in our society are supported. The DPS is used for both individual placements and block book beds. We are developing a new care home commissioning plan. So we've asked Cabinet to extend the arrangements from March 24, when this was due to expire, to September 24. That will give us time to put together, hopefully, a new care home commissioning plan with guiding principles that will be to make sure that we improve the quality of care homes in Staffordshire and timely access to care home placements when required, and to ensure a fair cost for care home placements that ensures the sustainability for the market, value for money for taxpayers and a balanced budget. Cabinet agreed to extend this until September 25, and we will be bringing back to this Council a new arrangement when we have that put in place to bring forward. Thank you, Chair.
Item 10 on the leader statement, the Joint Enterprise Delivery Committee. Again, I have no speakers, so I'm going to move on quite quickly to item 11 on the leader statement, which is the Integrated Performance Report, Q4 2023/24. Councillor Paul Snape.
Thank you, Chairman. We're now at item 11. In the previous item, we've spoken about social care, highways, climate change, apprenticeships, schools, a lot of things. But to me, this is the most important item on the agenda. Without a balanced budget that has been put through by Councillor Ian Parry, the Cabinet, with the assistance of Rob Salmon, we wouldn't be able to talk about any of those things because we'd have no money left to do it. So we've now got a 5-year balanced budget. Our residents can sleep tight in their beds, knowing that if the next election they vote Conservative, they will continue with a balanced budget for the rest of that period. People may remember when we came into power all those years ago, that in the preceding years there had been a double-digit tax increase for 4 years. I think it was something like 40%. The council tax had gone up. We have kept it to a minimum, yet we've done a balanced budget. We have to change things. People had to leave the authority. But running a council is one of the most difficult things, as our leader and our financial leader knows what it's all about. So all I can really say is thank you on behalf of the residents of Cannock Chase for giving them a balanced budget, letting them have the roads done, the schools done, everything. So thank you very much, Cabinet, Leader and Rob Salmon.
Councillor Samantha Thompson.
Thank you, good afternoon, and congratulations to both of you. I would just like to ask, the MTFS has been balanced for the next 4 years. However, we have a predicted overspend of 4 million. I'm just wondering how we're going to be dealing with that and what plans we have in place for it, please.
I have no further speakers, so I'm going to bring in Councillor Ian Parry.
This budget, just so no one feels left out, this budget does cover, in fact, the areas of the Moorlands and Biddulph, because I don't want anyone. I don't want anyone to do a word search on what I say and find that that doesn't appear. I think this is a really important challenge in terms of how can we say we have a balanced budget, and quite rightly, we have an overspend this year. We have a net overspend at Q4, which will probably look something like the year end, of about 0.5% of our total budget. That does account to around £4 million. No budget is without pressures. No budget is without risks. It's understanding and ameliorating those risks and dealing with those pressures, which is at the heart of what we try to do. So over that 4-year period, there are going to be some risks, there are going to be some things that we need to address. Already this year, for example, 6 million out of £11 million worth of projected savings have been achieved. That's good going. That's good going based on all the pressures that we've got. But the MTFS is a plan. It's just a plan. We've got to deliver on that plan, and that means rigour, that means control, that means good stewardship, that means good strategic thinking and delivery. And I think we're on with that. I think our historical record shows that we can do that, and we will continue to do that. The reasons why we've got a £4 million overspend is because we understand the pressure that we're under with the area of children's services and SEND in the county. And we've agreed to fund the transition of that, and that may take a few years. But we're seeing signs that the strategy, which has been robustly challenged repeatedly by the Cabinet, is one that we have confidence in, and that we're willing, therefore, to underwrite, in a sense, whilst that transition takes place. Similarly with SEND, there's two really challenging areas for the Council. It's our duty, isn't it, to look after children, and if more children need our care, we will meet that need. We'll meet that need. But it's not just that. There are things, dynamics within the marketplace that mean that the costs of care are something which are becoming less tolerable and something which we want to disrupt. So we're working on that as well. And certainly we need to ensure that these things moving forward are in place and are deliverable. Outside of that, if you look at our Q4, pretty much the same picture at year end. If you look down every service area, and this you won't find in many places around the country, is either balanced, as in zero, underspent slightly, or just in one area, children's, which we know about and which we are dealing with and which we are comfortable about, is the one area that's overspent. But a remarkable achievement of 0.5% overspent. And again, go back to my officer colleague, Rob Salmon and his team, for a remarkable job in ensuring that we've created and landed and delivered on this. And it's not just a financial thing, is it? Because that's the plan. That's the resourcing plan. The delivery plan, which is what this item refers to, the integrated performance plan, is something which is being delivered by the officer corps of this organisation, which is doing a remarkable job, challenged, supported, and overseen by a remarkably efficient Cabinet, although I say it myself. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're moving on to item 12 on the leading statement, which is Staffordshire Day. I have no speakers unless the Cabinet member wants to come in. No, move on, thank you. Item 13 on the leader statement, which is Film Office. Again, I have no speakers. Let's move on. Item 14 on the leader statement, which is Drugs and Alcohol Partnership. I have a number of speakers immediately on this item. Councillor Anne Edgeler.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I welcome this work on drugs and alcohol between the Council and Midland Partnership Foundation Trust. It's a shame that it is needed, but in today's society, it is necessary. It mentions in the report people suffering from addiction, how it affects family and friends. I know from personal experience how it can affect family life. I've been mugged, I've had my car stolen, I've had my house broken into and all my personal possessions stolen. All because my son got involved with the people peddling drugs. The reason I tell you this, I give a message and to all parents in Staffordshire. If you suspect your child is acting strangely or self-harming, try to find out why. Could they have been and started on the drug path? If so, I emphasise do all you can to stop it escalating further before it's too late and they are totally hooked. I'm sorry if I sound harsh, but I care deeply about children going down the wrong path. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Edgeler, we know you care deeply, genuinely so, and continue to care and continue to do the work you do. Councillor Tom Loughborough.
Congratulations on your appointment, Chairman and Vice Chairman, and to you, Councillor Edgeler, you have my respect. When it comes to and I'd also like to start on the families point. It mentions Betway Recovery in this sheet, and I know that they have a subsection for families, one of which includes my own mother. It won't be a surprise that I know about addiction services. I myself have been in rehab. Probably the most embarrassing point wasn't that, but it was probably talking to it was probably talking when 11 o'clock at night when someone asked me about a pothole in the BAC. I owe my life to the BAC. I owe my life to Betway. And I asked the leader of Betway yesterday how this partnership in practice is working. And so he gave me an example. There's a young individual who's suffering from addiction in a division, in one of my divisions, and previously it would have taken 12 weeks to be referred from Betway, Stars, rehab. The referral was done for his script within a couple of hours. The young gentleman will be in rehab in the next few weeks, and that's an example of the strong partnership level that we have. I think this is building on the partnership and social care that the County Council has. And I think that we should I welcome my the new cabinet member for this, Councillor Mike Wilcox, who I know has already been to visit the Burston Addiction Centre. I think on this one we're doing well. I'm aware this is one of the I'm aware that this partnership will have tether moments, but generally speaking to some of the organisations on this, it seems to be doing quite well, and I think it's something that we should be applauded for doing. You know, addiction can affect anybody. It can affect anybody, the families, social care, young people. And it's important that we work with every agency we can to make sure, and of course cross-border, because we have problems in the north of the county. I won't mention Biddulph, but I believe it does go through there, from the problems with monkey dust in Stoke. And I'm glad to see this partnership also involves cooperation with authorities in Stoke, because that is something that increasingly is coming to the north of the county. Of course, in the south of the county, we have the West Midlands, and this partnership, as I'm aware of, works alongside them, and I think it's to be commended. I think this is the sort of thing that I think in local government we should be doing more of. Thank you.
Councillor Jill Hood.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations on your appointment, and you too, Mr. Greatrix. It says here that addiction not only affects those battling with issues, but often affects their families. There's no often about it. The effect on families is devastating. You see the effects on children in school, the disruptive behaviour, and quite often it's very difficult to identify what's happening with those children because they don't understand themselves. Parents are ashamed, grandparents are ashamed of that family member who's having the effect on the family. I'm delighted to see that we have this partnership, but what really, really concerns me is the amount of people I know who are waiting on huge waiting lists to be seen. They're offered telephone appointments. This just isn't good enough. It creeps up on the family, and maybe someone's having the odd drink now and then suddenly, before they know it, full-blown alcoholic, getting drinks from anywhere that they can, finding bottles in the bathroom cupboard, in Wellington boots, I know. But until we can address these horrendous waiting lists, there's very little that we can do to help people who are queuing to be treated. And I would like to see, through the Health Scrutiny Committee, that we address these waiting lists. And so often, we have various agencies coming to that committee, and when you ask them, can you bring proof of your success? The answer is no. I've not once heard one of these agencies come along and say, we've seen so many people this year, this is the success rate that we have. They cannot tell you. And I would just like them to be more transparent with their language in coming to us and proving that, yes, they are doing something to help in a positive way. I see in the high street in my division well-known youngsters who I can actually watch deal. I've watched 2 deals by the same young man in exactly the same position because he knows he's standing directly underneath the CCTV and the CCTV cannot pick him up. He's very clever. And would you believe that I actually saw him do the last deal on February the 12th, and he used a card machine to sell his drugs? You know, how efficient are these guys getting? But as I say, I would just like to ask, Chairman, that we ask these agencies, what are your success rates? How are your waiting lists going down? Because believe me, everyone I know who is dealing with addiction, alcohol, drug abuse, whatever the addiction is, they are having to wait great lengths of time. And in that time, the deterioration on the family and on the actual addict themselves is horrendous. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Richie Cox.
Thank you, Chairman. It's very difficult to follow your thoughts when you hear the testimonies of Anne Edgeler and even Tom Loughborough-Rudd and examples quoted. Drugs and alcohol is a very, very difficult situation. That today's society, in the demands that we all live, some people manage it, other people just don't. And we have to wrap our arms around them and to ensure that we are there for them and do what we can to assist them in their rehabilitation. And I welcome in terms of the report and the work that's going to be done here. And I also particularly note, and I know that Tom knows them well, he's been there, Better Way Recovery. I've seen them, I go and see them on a regular basis because they're in Lichfield. I know they work in Tamworth. And you listen, and it's about listening, by the way, and it isn't about you doing the talking. It's listening to them and understanding what's going to be needed to help them. So anything we can do is so important. And then obviously to address the families that are also affected. You know, we're not just talking about the individuals. It is the big picture. So it's real. It's real because people within this chamber are experienced loved ones and etc. So it's not a fallacy. It's not a fairy tale. It's absolutely reality. And as a council, I absolutely welcome this report. We must do as much as we possibly can. And I'm sure through the scrutiny process, and I see that Councillor Pert is signaling to speak, but I'm sure, as Vice Chairman of that, I'm sure we're going to be looking where we can do and to see how we can help in that process as well. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Derry Cookfield.
Might I congratulate you, Chairman, right, on your position, right? And I hope we do as well this next 12 months as we've done in the last, with a bit of luck. I'm surprised that the young lady, right, supported you, right? But the simple reason is, right, she only did it, in my opinion, right, is because you're the only one that can get control of me. Yeah, so what more can you say, Chairman? Right, but getting down to the seriousness of what we're talking about at this moment. I believe that prevention is better than cure. So if there's any way we can work around this to prevent these young people, because that's how it starts, they get in with the friends, in with the mates, right, and they have a cigarette or a tablet or something like that, and before you know where they are, right, they're desperate, right? And what's been said already is absolutely correct, right, that they go stealing, they pinch off their own parents and everything. I've dealt with druggies as a counsellor for years and years ago, right? I set up a room, right, in a community centre, right, and dealt with drugs. And some of the things that you get involved in, you would never, ever believe it, Mr. Chairman. Frightening, right? And some of the things they do is frightening, right? And at the end of the day, right, they end up, and the young women end up with prostitution. It goes from one thing to another. And if you look at a prime example, without me even saying anything, look what's happening at this moment in time in Glasgow. They're in a terrible state up there of what's going on at this moment in time. And that's what worries you, right? Because you don't want it to happen in Staffordshire, right? Because we've got to prevent it some way or another. And that's why I'm saying prevention is better than cure. And if we can do something, right, to prevent these young ones, right, taking that pill, taking that cigarette or whatever, right, I think then you can turn around and say that Staffordshire County Council has done a fantastic job, because that would be, right, leading the rest of the country. Because that's what I believe in. Because these people, right, it's like a disease and they can't help it. They can't help themselves at all because they've been hooked. And when you're hooked on something like that, it takes a lot to get over. I used to smoke 60 cigarettes a day. A lot of cigarettes, isn't it? As a union man, right, and I'll say it, right, the first thing you did when you went into a meeting is the fags out, right, and the cigarettes. And you got addicted to them. Automatically, when you get up in the morning, you have a cigarette. And you're addicted. And that's what happens, right? And the same thing with drugs, right? They get addicted to, right? Before they know where they are, they've got a serious problem. Can I just say, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much once again for letting me speak. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jeremy Pert.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to pay testament to the previous speakers and the quality of this debate. We're in Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and it would seem amiss if I didn't just link the complexity of people's characters. Because often, you know, particularly post-COVID, people have many more complexities, many more issues that go on in their lives, drugs, alcohol, mental health issues. And whilst I think this is a really good partnership, I would like to see this go further and to see that there are wider partners involved, particularly our housing colleagues from across the districts and boroughs. I was particularly delighted and lucky to be involved in a visit to a high-level needs supported accommodation unit in Stafford 6 months ago. That has come about after 3, 4, 5 years of worth of hard work. And that is about trying to help the individuals move on from where they are to where they really do want to be. And I think the more we can interlink all relevant agencies into some of this work, the more we have a chance of helping those people to live the lives that they should be able to.
Councillor Gillian Pardesi.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we can all acknowledge it's heartbreaking the impact that drugs and alcohol have on the person who is addicted and their families. So maybe when it comes to cuts to those places where issues can be nipped in the bud or identified, such as youth centres, for example, we need to think twice about making cuts and bringing in austerity packages and cuts to our health visiting services, and maybe fight more for social housing to prevent thousands of young people languishing in bed and breakfast where they can't access their after-school clubs because of the distance. where preventative work can take place. So maybe we need to take a step backwards and concentrate more on thinking twice about making cuts to certain services where all we're doing is stockpiling issues for the future, such as the number of young people in particular who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, Chair.
Councillor Johnny McMahon.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations to yourself and to your Vice Chair, and we look forward to you over the next year. Jill Hood made a really important point, and it's very difficult to get right, and that's the bit about the fact that we want to see outcomes, and we want to see outcomes that work. Asking a provider to come to scrutiny is in some ways after the horse has bolted. It's all very good and right that the providers do come to scrutiny, but really, the story starts in the contract. And we have to get the contract right. I'm minded of Ellen Langer, who's professor of social psychology at Harvard, who quotes, and this is to do with addiction, who quotes, she's very keen on context, that context is everything for her. And she quotes a work done looking at people who developed, veterans from Vietnam, who developed addiction problems in Vietnam because of the conflict and the trauma that they went through. And comparing them, or contrasting them rather, with those who developed these problems whilst in the United States and having nothing to do with the military. And she found that those who were removed from the context in which they developed the problem managed to get over it far quicker, namely the veterans. So I wonder whether one of the things we can put in these contracts is that we want to see what the context is, and we want to see that you're actually doing something about removing them from the context that created the problem in the first place. And we would like to see numbers, so we know, we don't just guess, we know the proportion of those with the problem come from a particular context and background. We talk about meeting up with their mates. I expect a lot of it is just loneliness, which leads me to another point. And this is something we can all do to help these people. I wander up once a week to these allotments in Chadsmore and dig the odd potato and stuff like that. And they're community allotments, and people come from all walks of life, and those who have particular problems are encouraged. The difference that actually meeting people, those who are isolated, the difference of these people have in just meeting ordinary people once or twice a week is simply enormous. So these are the sort of things I think from a contractual point of view we can look at, and with the support of scrutiny, and then the whole business of challenging these providers is that bit more. We can hold them to the fire a bit better, shall we say? Thank you.
Councillor Paul Northcote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and late to the party, but nonetheless still important. Congratulations to yourself and the Deputy Mayor for your reappointment for the municipal year. I wasn't going to speak on this item. I was going to leave it to my colleague who will probably chip in a bit. I've heard with interest the testimonies that people have offered in this chamber today. And whilst it's absolutely sad and a sad indictment of where we are as a society today, we have to be realistic about what we can achieve. The trouble with drugs and alcohol sufferers is they lead such chaotic lives and often disintegrate their lifestyles as a result of their addiction. We're facing drug dealers with new business models that have adapted to the scenario of modern technology. You've mentioned this morning, the council mentioned the card machines. It's so easy to get drugs now. This particular report, bringing it back to the council's responsibility, is a partnership with the MPFT to address those that want to do something about their addiction. Now, I say that not with a heavy heart. It's good to be applauded that they've taken that decision to come to an organisation to face their drug addiction spot on. The complex issues of drug addiction is not everybody on their journey is ready for intervention. They have to take some responsibility and be supported to come to that decision. I accept we need more of these sort of things county-wide and indeed nationally. But we have to be realistic. This is a good news story that we're developing with the MPFT, particularly those with dual diagnoses and neurodiverse backgrounds, where they've got mental health issues which coincide with drug addiction issues. Meeting that battle is a halfway to breaking that cycle of addiction so they can produce fruitful and productive lives, as we've heard from one councillor this morning. It is possible. But we can't expect these services to be an all-encompassing catch-all for every single aspect and facet of drug addiction. It's far too complex. It needs to be thought out properly with all the agencies and partnerships involved with this, not just the MPFT and NHS. But we have to look at this holistically, that we need to pick off first those that want to break that cycle of addiction, and that's the key here. Those that want to continue their addiction, it's pointless throwing resources at them because at the moment things are so stretched in terms of resources, you're not going to achieve that sort of outcome. And people have placed a big emphasis this morning, I've heard, on numbers, Mr. Chairman. Having a complex drug addiction issue, depending where they are on their journey through life, to get that accurate assessment about what is the quality output there is very difficult. And if you spoke to any of the addiction centres, it's very difficult to quantify that actual success rate because we don't know, it's a total unknown of everybody who's on their journey of drug addiction, where they're at. It only becomes a problem when their lives become so dysfunctional that other services have to get engaged. Many people exist in jobs, high-profile jobs, responsible jobs with drug addiction. It happens. But unless people look at this sensibly, it's going to go on and on. And we've got to pick off the things, particularly those that want to give up drugs first and foremost. And that's what the good news story about this partnership is, Mr. Chairman. That the robustness of the MPFT and their wide presence in the county and beyond, particularly with mental health support, was going to be a big factor in helping to deliver this. And that's a really good news for Staffordshire. And I'll let my colleague talk about the Burton Addiction Centre that we both visited recently, and to hear the stories from people from different backgrounds, from city traders, even people that are involved with police forces, etc., from different backgrounds. It doesn't matter. Drugs isn't indiscriminate. It picks on anybody that drug dealers tend to target. And I heard Councillor Pardesi saying about youth clubs, but I'm sorry, I have to challenge that because youth clubs aren't always the solution, because they can actually cause problems because dealers home in on those sort of areas and know that's a good source to meet young people to distribute their product. So I urge councillors to think of this holistically and not just pin everything as a catch-all for this, because this is absolutely a good news story. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Mark Sutton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will be brief. Many people around the chamber have spoken about the use of drugs, and I think it's highlighted, or they have highlighted, the use of illegal drugs. And I just wanted to point out that a lot of drug addiction is around prescription drugs, vastly around the country, and and around the world. So I just wanted to ask the Cabinet member going forward, just to ensure in what we commission together with different parts of the health service also takes into account that. And it's not all about illegal drugs and alcohol. It is also about prescription drugs and in particular painkillers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Mike Wilcox.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members. I've listened very carefully to what everyone has to say, and it is moving, and it is an awful situation that we find ourselves in, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, I feel. We have now a new partnership that we have created with MPFT, who we have a long-standing relationship with. We all have our part to play in this, and we all need to stand up and be counted and do our bit. I will listen to all the issues around the contract, and it's a new partnership, so we will make sure that we have that dialogue with MPFT and other partner organisations, the police, housing, all those that play a part in this. We need to make sure that we're united in tackling this scourge that we have. I'm extremely blessed that I have Councillor Northcott with me on this, because he really is an expert and he's able to help me, because I'm certainly not. Certainly when we went to the centre in Burton, you could not help but be moved by the stories of these people that by any chance had just happened to fall in this side of addiction. And it can happen to anybody. So it really was really mind-opening, blowing to see what goes on. So we are determined, this county and this council and this my remit in this area, we are determined to meet this head on. We will do all we can, as much as we're able to, within this new partnership, to make sure that it does have all the criteria, it does address all the issues. We will work closely with members of Overview and Scrutiny to bring back to see the tangible results that we can glean from this. But make no bones about it, we are determined to tackle this for the good of the people and the families of Staffordshire who live with this on a daily basis. So I thank members for their participation in this. We will, you can be assured, we will make sure that we push this forward as a strategy and work really closely with all our partner organisations. Thank you, Chair.
Moving on to the final item on the leader statement, which is item 16, which is HS2. Councillor Richard Cox.
Thank you, Chair. HS2, I mean, I really like what's in this paper we're doing. We still have a real task to hold the project to account. There are issues that are going to be ongoing, the south of through the Lichfield district for sure. And so I do welcome the work and the acknowledgement that as a county, we still oppose the project. And making a clear message to those combined service authorities, their mayors, that talk to the county council at Staffordshire, because your aims affects not only our county in terms of construction, but my goodness, we've just had a long debate on in terms that could be linked to mental health. Those that are seriously affected by loss of property, land, etc., with a promise that you get your land back, but we don't know when, etc., etc. All of those issues are putting massive strains still on individuals and human beings. So it's not just about building a damn railway. It is about people and how it affects those people. So I really do thank the fact that we are championing that point, that we're still wanting to be talking and get the best for our residents, because it is extremely important. And there's a lot more work to be done. Don't think it's just disappeared. There's so much work and there's so much disruption in our district. So I do thank the Cabinet members and the Council for bringing this forward. It is so important. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As we're very much aware in Staffordshire, in October 2023, the Prime Minister announced the scrapping of the HS2 leg north of Birmingham, and that the £36 billion previously allocated for the high-speed rail would be released. This money is to be reinvested in alternative rail, road and bus schemes across the North and Midlands under the banner of Network North. Perhaps the most significant takeaways from the government's plan are that all the money released from HS2 has been retained in the transport budget, rather than clawed back by the Treasury, and that more or less the money has already been allocated to either specific projects or budget lines. The sums involved are very considerable indeed. The projects announced are broadly the sorts of investment in local road, rail and bus services that we have certainly lobbied for over a number of years. We note that while the money has been allocated, not all of it has been ring-fenced to specific projects, and therefore a considerable amount is still likely to be up for grabs at the local level. Does the county have a list of allocated projects using these HS2 funds? A list of additional yet unallocated projects, which we could call a wish list? And does either of these categories include the reopening of the Stoke to Leek line?
Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, we do as local members get fairly regular briefings from the HS2 team, and those are really quite comprehensive. I suppose our frustration is that it takes so much time for the plans that they're bringing forward to actually be seen on the ground. And I have to say, through my division, that I've got a great scar which looks like there's been a great cleaver from above swiped across it. My pressures to HS2 is, what are they going to do about restoring the sides to the rail track? I'm assured that they are looking to do that at the earliest possible stage, but at this moment we still have an appalling scar where we still have bridges which are going in, and we are feeling the effect of HS2, perhaps really before you, Richard, are going to have what's coming to hit you. So HS2 is still very, very much with us, and that's something that concerns me as far as our local residents are concerned. When we look at rail benefits, I was very interested to have an email from Sir Michael Fabricant, who tells me that he's had a meeting with the rail operators and that we have got a planned hourly fast service from Lichfield Trent Valley through into Euston. And that will be a massive benefit alongside the slow service that we have as well. So it's not all bad news, but it's going to be a long time coming. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor John Francis.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, HS2, it's an anathema, isn't it? It was ill-conceived in the first place by Gordon Brown and his mob. That's number one. Number two is the project has overrun, where it was going to be £34 billion, it went to £50 billion, it went to £70 billion, and now we're talking about, to finish it off all the way, will be at least £120 billion. That's why it's been cancelled, only allowed up to Birmingham. The issue here is, and as my colleagues have already alluded to, the impact on people in the areas where this thing was going to go. And it's horrendous. There's dozens and dozens of empty houses and farmhouses and land that's been allocated for this project. Ingerstreet, which is a small village hamlet in my division, is right next to one of the best golf courses in Staffordshire. HS2 built them a new golf course across the road, in the fields across the road. So they've now got 2 golf courses they've got to try and fund. It's just ridiculous. And the thing about HS2, as David's alluded to, yes, we've had briefings and all the rest of it, but we've never seen the same people twice. HS2 can do what they want, where they want, with what they want, because you can't get hold of the people that matter. And it's an absolute disgrace. And this will be a complete mess for years to come, years to come. And one of my farmers was on the television the other day. He got the HS2 was going right through the middle of all his barns, so he sold them up. he wants to buy back the land, but he doesn't want the barns now, so the barns are empty. So there's all these things going on which prove that basically, as far as I'm concerned, the government creating HS2 Limited as a private company to develop this blooming thing has dropped a right one, because what happens is they're acting as an autonomous unit, which they are, and doing what they want, when they want, with what they want. And it's not on. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Paul Northcote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep this fairly brief because Councillors have already probably duplicated what I wanted to say. Many residents in my division, Mayley, Baldwinsgate and Whitmore, you may have seen on the TV this week, have faced many years of uncertainty. So when this news comes around about the mayors wanting to reactivate the route, you can understand the distress and feeling that there is now in the villages that have already been ripped apart by the effects of HS2 and the uncertainty. And I wish to thank the leader for canvassing and pressing the fact that we do need to be consulted, not just overseen by mayors with idealistic projects that they want to pursue, but it's about the actual people, the heart of these communities that the effects of HS2 have had. And I think I just want to pause to recognise the fact that these people have been suffering hell in some situations for years and years. It's ended up in my division with a lot of people that have actually passed away during the stress of it all. It's been well documented that this is a blight on our county. It's not needed, it's not required, it doesn't fit the business model of rails. It's a vanity project that's exceeded its budget in many different facets. And I just think that this is outrageous and we should kick back big style with this, that we're not accepting this in any form in the future. And I just wish to reiterate my early comment about thanking the leader for making sure that the residents of Staffordshire, particularly my division, obviously, that get their fair share of the consideration and their say in matters that concern them through a proper consultation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Martyville.
Chairman, thank you very much, Chairman. You could almost write a thesis, couldn't you, about how not to start a project, how not to manage a project, and how not to deliver a project. And thank you for all the speakers this morning, because I think you've almost said everything. Mr. Yates, with regard to allocation of funding to repair our roads, to further develop our highways in Staffordshire, unallocated HS2 funds, I would urge you to write to your MP regarding that. I'd urge all members who feel as strongly as members have spoken today, most eloquently, write to your MP. Mr. Northcott quite rightly says it's not about railway lines, Mr. Cox said. It's not about a railway line or trains. This is about people's lives and the destruction of people's lives. As Mr. Northcott said, some people have died whilst waiting for rectification of these awful situations, and my heart bleeds for people who've been so massively adversely affected. So, well said, Mr. Francis, well said, Mr. Smith, well said, Mr. Cox. As far as we are concerned, we're crystal clear, and we always have been from the outset. Our position remains exactly the same. We're always been opposed to HS2. We oppose HS2 and any plans now. I think the team that are still working, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for your kind comments on the information that you get from the HS2 team. They still have a big job to do. They do a fantastic job. Those comments will certainly be passed on to them. And the team still continues with its work to mitigate the negative effect that HS2 has had and continues to have in some parts of our county, and will continue to mitigate the work that's disrupting our beautiful county. And I thank again, Chairman, all the speakers for being extremely eloquent about this dreadful situation for some people. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Alan White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've sort of lived and breathed HS2 for 14 years. It goes 600 metres past my house. I was a portfolio holder in Lichfield District when we initially started having the liaison with HS2, so I fully understand the impact that it's had on people's lives. Staffordshire County Council and Lichfield District Council have been extremely clear about their position regarding HS2. Some people have suggested that perhaps Staffordshire County Council hasn't been strong enough. They have. I can tell you myself and Philip Atkins, as the previous leader, have been extremely clear about our position on HS2. I would address this comment to parliamentarians. If you've decided the next leg of HS2 isn't going ahead, repeal the Act. It's not a busy parliamentary timetable at the moment, so you've got plenty of time to get on with it. Repeal the Act, and that will prevent the uncertainty for Staffordshire residents. And let's be clear about what that uncertainty might actually mean. If you live in Stoke, if you live in Tamworth, if you live in Stafford, the impact on your ability to get to London by rail may be severely impacted by any alternative ambitions that people might have for HS2, Mark II or Mark III. The allocations that Councillor Yates refers to from the Network North money, they are vast sums of money. I seem to recall somewhere around £250 million for Staffordshire. Shall I tell you how much we've received so far? 3.1 million. And it's earmarked exclusively for, wait for it, potholes. So whatever ambitions people might have for the £250 million of Network North money, they can park those to one side, whether it's the Stoke Leak Line or whatever. We've got £3.1 million, which at the price that HS2 costs will probably cover the cost of a single sleeper of track and 10 centimetres of line. The two mayors, West Midlands and Greater Manchester, have ambitions to run a railway line through our beautiful county. Well, they can think again. They can think again, because there is no way we in this chamber are going to tolerate other people outside this county telling us what we should and shouldn't do with our land, especially when it might mean the railway service for Staffordshire residents gets worse, not better. So we will not tolerate it. We have adopted a strong position. Our strong position remains. I would ask members of Parliament, get the Act repealed, remove the uncertainty for Staffordshire residents, and let's move on.
Thank you, Councillor White. Members, it's 9 minutes past 1. A number of us sat here quite a number of hours now. I've decided that we will break for lunch, but we will have a short lunch. We will be back and we will convene and start the meeting at 2 o'clock. I will ask Mr. Bradbury to ring the bell about 3 minutes to 2, and we will start bang on 2 o'clock. Look forward to seeing you then. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you. Members, can I ask you please to take your seats? Thank you. We'll sort it after. Have a look in your official diary. Members, can you please take your seats? Welcome to the afternoon session. I hope you all had a very pleasant lunch. We'll continue with the agenda, which is item 8, which is the changes to the Constitution requiring approval from the County Council. Councillor Samantha Thompson, will you move consideration of the report, please?
Mr Chairman, I move the consideration of this report.
I have no speakers on this. I take it the report is approved. Yeah. Item 8, which is the Members' Allowance Scheme for the Independent Remuneration Panel. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration of the report, please?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I move consideration of the report, and I'm delighted to notice that it's not just me that's lost all my friends during the lunch, it's also the leader of the Labour group. I don't know what aftershave it is I'm wearing this morning, but it's clearly not popular. But I move consideration of the report.
Thank you. Councillor Samantha Thompson, will you second the report, please?
I second the report. Thank you.
I have one speaker, Councillor Nigel Yates.
Yes, just a point of information. There is an annual meeting at Burton.
Stand up.
Sorry. There's an annual meeting at Stafford District Council this afternoon. It starts at 2 o'clock.
It has been moved and seconded that the recommendation contained in the report be approved. Is that agreed? Item 10, the annual report from the Audit and Standards Committee, 23-24. Councillor Worthington, will you move consideration of the report, please?
Report, Chairman. I think it's an excellent report if members have read it, and the full credit to the audit team at Staffordshire County Council. Thank you.
I have no speakers. I move that the report be received. Is that agreed? Aye. Thank you. Item 11, which is committee membership. Councillor White, can you please move the nomination for the group leaders for the appointment of the members' committees?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I move the nominations of the group leaders for the appointment to members of the committee and look to one of my cabinet colleagues to second.
Councillor Sutton, will you second, please? Second, please.
Can that matter?
I have no speakers. I move that the proposals be noted. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 12, appointment of chairman and vice chairman of committees and panels. Councillor Alan White, can you please move your nominations for the appointment of the chairman and vice chairman of the committees and panels?
I move the nomination for the appointment of chairman and vice chairman of committees and panels, Mr Chairman.
Councillor Samantha Thompson, will you second, please?
Thank you.
I have no speakers. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 13, appointment of members to outside bodies. Councillor White, can you please move your nominations for the appointment of members to outside bodies?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I move the nominations for the appointments of members to outside bodies, but before I move on, can I just thank members for the hard work they do in the outside bodies. That outreach that we have to a whole multitude of organisations is vital. It's important that we continue to be represented, that you represent the County Council's interests at those bodies. So I'd just like to take this moment just to thank councillors for the hard work that they do on those committees.
Councillor Samantha Thompson, will you second, please?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Yes, I'll second that.
Is that agreed? I have no speakers. Thank you. Well, we 5 minutes, we've done so many items. Item 14, which is questions under Standing Order 8. We all know the rules, but I'm going to repeat them anyway. The 5 questions and answers have been circulated to members and published on our website. In accordance with the usual procedure, the questions and answers will be taken as read. I will allow each questioner 5 minutes in which to ask a supplementary question and to receive an answer. As you're all aware, members, no debate is allowed on the questions. Councillor Charlotte Atkins to Councillor Deville.
My supplementary is what criteria is used on the allocation of the Pothole Pro to different divisions? And given that you said earlier that you want to involve local members, do local members have any input into the allocation of the machine to their divisions?
I thank, Chairman, I thank Councillor Atkins for her question. Right, the criteria. Firstly, the JCB Pothole Pro is working very, very efficiently and very productively. Criteria really is around, it works, it's at its best and most productive when it has a large area to work on. So it has predominantly been working on areas pre-patching, so areas that have been repaired prior to surface dressing. So we're looking at that as a key area to getting maximum productivity out of the JCB Pothole Pro. However, we will also be looking at using the machine on general defect repairs. You know, we've got a large stack of defects that we want to bring down, so why wouldn't we use both the Pothole Pro and the Velocity Patcher on reducing those numbers massively? You know, in a short space of time, they give our residents great satisfaction that they can see a large swathe of roads with defects is repaired. So we're working at the moment. I'm absolutely adamant that the machine moves all around the county. And I think you'll see in recent weeks that it has moved in different divisions. I think it's up in Biddulph at the moment. We will then work very, very closely with all local members, A, to tell them where the machine is and what it's doing, and B, importantly, you know, to get some good communications out. It's a Staffordshire-built machine working in Staffordshire, and we'd want local members to get some good comms around the machine working in their areas. So our comms team will be working very closely with all members on future locations of the Pothole Pro. So A, we need to make sure that it's working in the best area to give maximum productivity, and then B, let the local member know exactly where it will be working and when. So the local member can go, talk to the crew, see the machine in action, and get some good communications as well.
Question 2, Councillor Yates to Councillor Tagg. Councillor Yates, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you very much for your answer. Very pleased to see that a new round has been launched, and it's an ideal opportunity using the question to publicise that to all members present. What I would request, is it possible just to tweak the criteria so it operates a little bit like the DHB operates, in the context that some of the schemes which would benefit from a very small amount of funding within the communities don't always come under the umbrella of an organised or constituted community group or town and parish council. And I think if there was a little bit of leeway to allow councillors to actually put bids in for projects of their own initiative based on feedback from the community and the community need, we could actually get a lot more done with it in a lot more areas which don't have the benefit for having such constituted groups. And I think that would encourage us to get out and actually see what small amounts of, for want of a better term, fettling is needed to require, especially to encourage more walking routes being used and things like that, and to make the footpaths and whatever more resilient. I'm sure we've got plenty of things where £50 here and £100 there would make a significant difference to the usability of some of the things which we've got, which enhances the move more type of approaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the supplementary, Councillor Yates. Yes, we'll look at that. I think last year was the best year so far out of I think it's the 4 years we've done the Climate Change Action Fund. We're always looking to improve it. We're looking at the criteria again, and we're also looking at the different deadline points as well to enable members to maximise their spending in the community. I think one thing we've learned this year is not to put the deadline the week right after Christmas. We're going to actually lead to a few weeks into January, because again there's a big rush of applications just before Christmas. Everybody's very busy, aren't they, trying to get ready for Christmas and don't want to be filling applications in, so, and trying to get them into us. So that did cause a bit of a sort of a backlog last time. So we're going to learn from that, but certainly take that on board and speak to officers as we obviously refresh the fund and relaunch it in a few weeks. Thank you.
Question 3 is from Councillor Pardacy, who isn't in the chamber. So we move on to question 4, which is Councillor Hussain to Councillor Wilcox and not here, no. So we move on to question 5, which is Councillor Afsar to Councillor Wilcox. Councillor Afsar, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, just a quick one. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the reply.
Just had a verbal conversation earlier with the cabinet member who indicated that there's a members' event, an event planned for the postcodes of my division. If you can just confirm that, and that will be it. Thank you.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Councillor Afsar. Yes, there is an event. Diabetes Prevention Week is from the 20th to the 26th of May, and we have identified postcode areas in the Lichfield and Burton-on-Trent areas that where there's a prevalence of issues that may well help if we get sort of targeted approach in those areas. So I will share the information with him so that he can actually make sure that the borough are well aware of the activities that's going on during that week. Thank you.
Thank you. We may now move on to item 14, which is petitions. I have 3 members who've notified me that they are about to make a petition. That's Councillor Peters, Councillor Cox and Councillor Abrahams. Are there any other members wish to present a petition before I give those the opportunity to speak? I'll take that as a no. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to submit a petition on behalf of residents in my Stretton division who live on Craythorne Road. It's sometimes known as Craythorne Lane, but they're objecting to the amount of HGVs that are using this very small carriageway. It's not a carriageway, it's a lane, and they would like some restricted signage to be imposed on it, please.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Richard Cox.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a petition from a whole community of Kings Bromley. Back in October last year, the community tragically lost a member of their community, and I have to say a stalwart of the community. So it wasn't just somebody, it was actually somebody that everybody knew through the church, bowl club and everything else. It was a hit and run. It's very sad to say that the person has still to be got hold of. I think the police are doing a very good job, but it is a current investigation, and no doubt he will be brought to justice. However, the reason for the petition is behind lighting and road safety measures on the A515 that goes through Kings Bromley. Certainly from Yoxall in, you suddenly have a sharp bend into the darkness of the village where the incident occurred. So I have a petition here with 447 signatures, but more interestingly, because it's a small community in that respect, but over 90% dwellings, households. So that tells me we've got a very good reason to obviously work to. Now, I will say that since the accident, we have got works preliminary going on with feasibility studies, etc. It may be towards the end of this year, but I would hopefully urge that we try and bring it forward as quickly as possible. This has affected the whole community, and I go and see the widower, Mr. Baker, to see that he's all right, and all he wants to see is something done, and then he will not see his wife's killing in vain. Thank you.
The final petition today, which is Councillor Jack Abrahams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to submit a petition on behalf of the good people of Purton, who firmly believe that the speed limit in the village has been too high for too long. Thank you. Thank you.
I have to say, Councillor Abrahams, that was very short and to the point. Thank you. Item 15 is exclusions. Members, item 15 is exclusions of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involves the likely disclosure of exempt information so defined in paragraphs of Part 1 of the Schedule 12I as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below. Is that agreed? Thank you. We'll just wait now, members, for the press to leave, others to leave, and Simon will be closing down the video recording.